to just tell you the score.
No.
And balls, strikes,
That's
fouls.
awesome.
Welcome to the Select Board meeting for July 25th. We'll start with the pledge.
July 15th?
July 15th.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. My name is Fred Faulkner. I'm Vice Chair of the Finance Committee, and we have a joint meeting this evening. Before we start, I'd just like to recognize two new members. This is their first meeting that they've been at. Mr. Sanjay Gowda, who was Town Moderator's appointee from Tim Goddard, and Jonathan Vance, and he assures me he's not going to be Trump's running mate. So he will be around during budget season. Jonathan Vance was appointed by the school committee, and special thanks to Jerry Bertozzi, who had to make some changes to our schedule to be here tonight so we could do the year-end voting. So that's it.
Just before we get started, I'll just read off the agenda. So we did the organization. We're going to read mail. We have the joint meeting with the Finance Committee. We'll do public input. We have 3 one-day liquor licenses to approve. The department head updates, to hire Eric Durba as facilities manager, approve the IMA for the Aspet Regional Housing Consortium, and an update from Rotary. We have select board discussions regarding the cannabis HCAs and the social justice policy. Discussion regarding the Article 31 from the town meeting, which was the citizen petition. Review the MOA with Park and Rec. Job description for Elder and Human Services Program Coordinator, and potential vote on a town P-card purchase policy. And then we'll approve minutes and adjourn promptly at 9:05. So we'll start with the mail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Select Board, and everyone out there in Littleton land. I want to start with our current vacancies on town boards. Mr. Chairman, you said this list was going to get shorter.
It did get shorter, believe it or not.
I believe it. We have an available opportunity with the Agricultural Commission, one with the Clean Lakes Committee, 2 with Conservation Commission, 2 with the Cultural Council, 1 with Economic Development Committee, 1 with the Historical Commission, 1 with the LCTV Advisory Committee, 2 members for the 3 members actually for Master Plan Implementation Committee, 2 members for the Permanent Municipal Building Committee, 1 member for Taxation Aid Committee. We have 4 members for Transportation Advisory Council. And last but not least, we have 3 members on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Also would like to let everyone know that we have received a notice of public hearing. The Massachusetts Water Resource Commission gave notice under Mass General Law, Chapter 21, Interbasin Transfer Act, ITA, and regulations. They will conduct 2 virtual public hearings, 1 each for the donor and receiving basins, to provide public comment on proposed permanent interbasin transfer. The Littleton Electric Light and Water Department, which has its sources in the Merrimack River Basin, is proposing to supply up to 65,000 gallons per day, subject to the ITA, to provide clean drinking water to areas in Boxborough contaminated with PFAS, sodium, and chloride. The Water Resource Commission is required to consider the impact of the transfer on such issues as fisheries, recreation, and the aquatic ecosystem for the donor basin. To this end, the Commission has scheduled 2 public hearings to receive comments on this proposed interbasin transfer of water. The donor basin is on July 24th, 2024 at 11 a.m. Meeting will be held online via Zoom. And we're also, the second one will be, the receiving basin will be July 24th at 1 p.m., also being held via Zoom. And for anybody that would care to join that, please go to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Water Resource Commission page, and the link will be up there. Sign up for receive public notifications for the town of Littleton, community impacts, transportation issues, public health concerns, public safety activity, town meeting changes, town events. Stay informed. Also, would like to let everybody know that a memo from the town accountant that the library has received a gift of $5,000 from the John C. Morrison and Eunice B. Morrison Charitable Foundation in recognition of their good work to assist in their mission for library programming. Thank you very, very much for your generosity. And unfortunately, the last notice I have here is from Comcast, and want to be able to announce that there will be some price increases through Comcast. The outside TV features will increase the cost of its subscription video on-demand package from $1.99 per month to $4.99 per month. GAIA will increase the cost of subscription video on-demand package from $11.99 per month to $13.99 per month. Warner Brothers Discovery will increase the cost of its Max ad-free tier and HBO subscriptions from $15.99 per month to $16.99 per month. Customers are going to receive notice of these changes in their bill and will see the new cost reflected in their next bill unless they cancel their subscription. And that's it.
I have one other mail announcement. Some people might have received this in their mail. The Prouty Woods has been closed. All the trails in Prouty Woods are closed for the next 2 months as they're doing timber harvesting. So please respect the closed signs. I believe the trails are supposed to open again around Labor Day, and I'm not positive on the exact date. So please pay attention to the signs.
I believe there's an agreement to open it for the Ironman.
They are opening it for, they have opened the trails for the Appleman. Yeah. So, okay, joint meeting. All right, you in session?
We're in session, yep.
Welcome to members.
So, year-end transfers?
Okay. So let's pull up the transfers. Okay, so we have sent out to the Select Board and Finance Committee the proposed year-end transfers. Now, this should technically be a vote just of the Finance Committee because the Select Board has already authorized us to make these changes. As Fred pointed out, I think we pointed out that we do not have a quorum of the Finance Committee tonight, so this will be introducing the proposed transfers.
No, we have a quorum.
Yes, I do now.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay, all right. My apologies. Okay, thank you again, Jerry, for showing up. So,
You didn't read your mail.
yeah, okay, I guess. All right, so this is just a listing of the transfers. We are allowed to make these transfers at the end of the fiscal year. We've kept them within the functional areas of general government, public safety, and education, and then so basically we have the total here is about $213,000 when you remove snow and ice, because we won't be making those transfers, but we wanted to show where we were with our snow and ice deficit. That'll be raised in the recap. That basically we're looking at total amount of transfers that you'd be voting on at about at $135,535,000.28. So again, this is sort of a common thing, but we want to be able to be transparent in terms of the things that that we needed to fill in for our operating budget to close out our fiscal year 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So, are there any questions?
Any line item questions from anybody on Fincom?
I don't have any.
John, you okay?
Yeah, I think I'm okay.
You're okay? Okay. If we have no questions, then I'll look to Finance Committee for a motion to approve the transfers as stated.
Motion to approve the transfers as stated.
Okay, and second?
Second?
Second by Jerry. Okay, all those in favor, Sanjay?
Aye.
John? Matt?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Thank
4-0, yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay. If I could, next item we have up is a vote to amend the fiscal year 2024 department revolving funds for parks, recreation, community education from 1.3 million to 1.5 million. So this will be the second time that we've amended that amount. This just reflects the actual spending that Parks and Rec has. We've originally, the number was at the May 2023 town meeting, and then in the fall town meeting, we adjusted it from, I think it was 1.1 million to 1.3 million. And so this request is, again, reflects the actual spending that took place in Parks and Rec. There is sufficient revenue to cover this, so this is just simply just kind of a housekeeping item. Now that, because when we looked at our accounts at the revolving funds at the end of the year, Parks and Rec was a little bit higher than what their $1.3 million target was. So it's, again, pretty much straightforward, and in many ways it's a reflection of just the fact that oh, okay, okay. Bring it a little closer. So any event, yeah, again, this is relatively pro forma, but reflects the actual spending of Parks and Rec.
So you're saying their revenues were?
Yeah, the revenues
well.
reflected
Okay.
it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess the only question I would have is we're less than 2 months from past town meeting, and we're making this adjustment sort of after the fact. Did we not know that we were going to blow over when we went into town meeting, or
Right, so
why was that?
I think it's something we're working with Parks and Rec in terms of keeping on top of things. This is just, so as we went through and had the year-end updates, just seeing where we were at, this is where we really came up, Fred. So I think it's a good thought that we're going to be keeping a closer eye on that. But again, it shouldn't impact our bottom line.
Okay.
So I have two questions on this, kind of related. Both of the votes before were at town meeting, but now just these boards can
Right.
make this authorization?
Right, so, yeah, we checked with town council on it and DOR, because this is year end, they're allowing this to occur. So if we had another town meeting, there may be a possibility too, that we may, after the fact, we still would be checking with town meeting, or town council on this as to whether or not retroactively, we may just to kind of belt and suspenders this, ask for a change at the fall town meeting. But right now, in terms of us closing our books, this is what the request is a joint, would be votes of both the select board and the finance committee to allow us to make this change.
Okay. And what happens for 2025?
So in 2025, we've already, the number, I think, is it 1.5? Yeah,
right.
so 1.5 million is where our start point is, and again, we're going to be keeping an eye on this throughout the course of the year and see where the actual spending is, so that we stay current and make any adjustments accordingly.
Any other questions or comments?
I was wondering, Alicia, if you could come up as a director and kind of just talk about, I know we have a few new finance committee members, just the complexity, I guess, of trying to land the budget in line with a town meeting and why that can be difficult with a lot of the income
Yeah.
and the delayed receipts and things like that.
Right, so that's a big part of it. So a lot of our programs, we base off of what we think we're going to get as far as attendance. And as I've kind of said over the past year, that the attendance for our programs has massively increased for especially our summer programs, which unfortunately lands right on that line of ending our fiscal year and starting our new fiscal year. So that means that when we have all of these additional participants coming in, yes, there's an influx of revenue, but at the same time, there's going to be a higher amount of expenditures and wages that come from that as well. So typically with our programs, we end up taking in revenue months before our programs start. So that way, that means that we have money that we've taken in fiscal year '24 revenue that's meant for fiscal '25 wages and expenditures. So I'm working out the exact amount because I want to be like right on, but we're looking probably around like $600,000 of that money would be to pay for wages and expenses. We also had a lot of projects that we didn't have budgeted this year, so we took on the beach walkway. There was a lot of electrical work at some of the parks. We had roadside soccer net for Kerper Field, sailboat repairs, kayaks for the fishing program. The beach roof needed to be fixed, and we created a preschool area. So all of that estimated around $53,000. So like Ryan was saying earlier, I've worked really closely with Robin and Kim in the treasurer's office, so we've created some different protocols. Kim's created these amazing Excel tools, so we're going to use those going into the next year just to keep a better eye and track on things.
Thank you.
Does that help? Yeah. Any other questions while I'm up here? All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Do we want, are there two motions, one for the select board, one for finance?
Right.
Okay.
So we did this.
I move that the select board vote to amend the fiscal year 2024 department revolving fund for parks, recreation, and community education from 1.3 million to 1.5 million.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, basically the same motion, taking the spending limit from 1.3 to 1.5 for the revolving fund for Park and Rec. I'll take a motion for that.
Okay, motion to, I'll walk you through that one again.
It's okay, just read that if you want, just.
Move that the select board and finance committee vote to amend the fiscal year 2024 department revolving fund for parks and recreation and community education from 1.3 to 1.5 million.
Okay, motion, have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by John, second by Jerry. All those in favor, Sanjay? John?
Aye.
Jerry? Fred, aye.
Thank you. Okay. Pull up the next one. The next item is our financial management policy. So we're going to be working from Steve's memo here to kind of go over at least higher level what we discussed as from the financial policies working group, which met, I believe, 3 times. To go over the existing policies and recommend changes. So these are public meetings, and the changes that we are working on, you have in the packet your red line version as well as the final version, need to be approved by both the select board and the finance committee. So separately, so similar kind of thing as to what we just did with the Parks and Rec vote. So big picture in terms of changes that we're recommending to the policy is to just kind of go over the highlights of this. Under section 12 for undesignated fund balance or free cash, there's a provision added to allocate unspent free cash to capital stabilization as an alternative to letting funds fall to free cash the following year. So basically trying to more actively use those reserves, and capital stabilization has a quicker value for us as opposed to waiting another year. They are advocating a deposit to a blended funds to the CPA account, which was specifically a separate item that allowed uses within the funds with minimums of 5% and 10%. So, and that the overall maximum contribution should be equal to the currently assessed 1%. As some of you remember, we were having a conversation about ways that we could put more money into CPA and without necessarily raising the 1% to 3%, which was discussed last year around this time. So this is a way that using the financial policies to help add money to CPA, where we, under the blended fund, we have matching funds, which, again, better use of our monies that we invest in the CPA. So we're looking at that.
Excuse me, Brian, the one thing of note, I think, with the CPA funding, it was moved up in the hierarchy
That's right.
of accounts, so that it's almost guaranteed that we'd be funding that.
We'd be funding
You know,
that.
if we have a really lousy year, nothing gets funded, but it doesn't have to sort of fill so many buckets before it gets to CPA. So
Yeah.
we did do that. We heard what you guys were saying and tried to bring it up.
Right. And for our newer members too, the state typically provides some sort of match for our CPA funds, whatever we have on that balance. So it has been sort of a conscious effort of the Select Board and the Finance Committee to put money into that fund, because you're actually getting a return on that, not really a return on investment, but a match from the state, which we really wouldn't have with any of these other reserves we put money into. So that's it's part of a purposeful effort on the Select Board and Finance Committee's part to put those monies aside. So,
Did you say it was a max of 1% though?
well, I think what it's saying is that yes, I mean, the overall it needs to be equal to the current assessed 1%. So that the cap is essentially trying to get to that. If it's, it would basically be another percent, Jerry, on top of that.
Based
That would
on
be the
this,
cap.
if we had, a windfall, we couldn't do 2%?
That's what it's recommending,
Basically,
yeah.
yeah.
So they would go to other, be transferred to other reserves, right? So it's still, it's a full match from what the, what we're putting in as an excess. So that, yes, that's what you're right. So also, too, free cash is remaining at the minimum of 5% of the operating budget, and in the policy, it may be only done from the excess benchmark balance is 7.5% of the operating budget. So it's just basically offering minimum goals basically for us in terms of free cash and where we should be making contributions on that front. So in terms of the next section, section 13, general stabilization, there's been some confusion because we've developed more stabilization funds about our general stabilization fund. This is sort of our baseline fund, the break glass in case of emergency fund that the rating agencies really want to see you putting money aside for this. So we've established on a minimum annual deposit to the general stabilization fund of $100,000, even if the balance in the account exceeds 5% of the total operating budget. And then we established a new item which basically said the maximum balance of the account at 10% of the operating budget. So both a floor and a ceiling there in terms of what that contribution could be.
So can I ask why we decided to put in $100,000 even if we're already at what we consider to be the safe amount?
Yeah, and so I think that the committee, this was something that was raised by Steve, and where he came up with that number, I'm not sure, but I think it's just.
It's an abundance of caution, I believe, just to.
Yeah.
Still let it grow.
Yeah, right, that's right.
Can you, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
To let the balance grow.
But why-
Sometimes you're not contributing anything to it.
Right, but why would we necessarily want to contribute to that stabilization fund versus putting into a this is in the case of emergency break glass fund. If we already have what we consider to be a safe for an emergency, why are we still putting more in for an emergency versus another stabilization fund where we could spend it on other purposes if we so choose? We've already reached what we consider to be the safe balance, the minimum balance of 5%. If we wanted to up that number to 6%, that's something different than saying we're going to contribute even if we're at what we consider the safe cap. I don't understand the $100,000. That's my question.
I think the thought process that was presented was to make sure that we continually support the stabilization fund. And at the rate our operating budget, our overall town operating budget is increasing, that's not going to be an issue. It just isn't,
So you're saying we're never going to hit the $100,000 because we're always going to have to do that?
probably.
So why put it in there?
I think it's more, Mark, it's a cautionary. In theory, there could be a year where we don't do anything, with looking at future boards where
Right.
it just kind of sits there and nothing. It's almost forgotten about, where this is just kind of reminding the town, let's continue to put money. This is very important that we continue to grow this. I think that was kind of the thought process.
If you don't put it in when you have it, if we have another year or two like we did last year, Ryan's running out of buckets to pull down. I mean, we really did squeeze this in this year's fiscal year. So, it's just, I think it's just good, sound fiscal management. I really do.
I'm not against I'm not speaking against the stabilization fund at all. I'm questioning why, if we've already hit our target, if we're adding additional money to it. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be saving that additional money and just go willy-nilly spending it, but we have other stabilization funds that we can put it in instead. If we wanted to say that the cap shouldn't be 5%, it should be 6% or 8%, that's a completely different discussion.
That's a discussion,
than putting
right.
in $100,000 above this. I don't understand what the $100,000 does if we're not upping the cap. Maybe we should be upping the cap. And that we can have the discussion on, but the $100,000 seems like a separate issue or a separate way of getting there.
Well, it would be a year that you'd have no growth for this even to be a factor, right? I mean, on any given year, we're chasing a number. It's always more than 100,000, right?
So then there's no point in having this clause.
Well, but to increase it in percent could be any dollar amount based on whatever budget is, right? Where this is a fixed addition.
Where we put a ceiling on it as well, that is smart fiscal sense, because that kind of hits to your point of other funds that can use it. But it'll always be between the 5 and 10, right? In between, so. But continuing to grow up to 10 is what if you want to be extremely healthy, we'd be at 10%, right? And we can hold that. I remember when Steve put it in and he explained it, but I can't. You bring up a good point, and I don't know how to, with this. Obviously, we're all voting on it, but I'm trying to think that 100,000 could go where? Where else if we didn't?
You could pick another
Any
reserve.
other
You could do
reserve.
capital.
Well, if it doesn't go in general stabilization, it just cascades down the list of opportunities to put it into.
Right, but we just voted, we're about to vote on section 12, which has that cascading list with clearly delineated bucket sizes for each one, and then I assume that when you hit the top of the bucket, the extra money goes to the next one, which is exactly what we're not doing in this case, it sounds like. So I think Mark's point is valid.
Okay.
Like, I don't object to putting extra money away for a rainy day. I love the fact that we're in the position where we can do that. But why did we do it? And who made the call to take $100,000 and put it into that bucket instead of one of the ones in the list? That's all. And Steve isn't here, so we can't ask.
Yeah, maybe.
Do we have,
He's not going to be able to explain it any more than the growth piece of it, to continually be putting money in there even on years we don't have to. That was the sense.
Yeah, that's the sense of it.
The board, I guess, the two boards, if we're comfortable with, Mark, your point, I think we just vote that way. Or we can vote if we need to hear from Steve, we can vote and we vote everything except that, depending what Steve comes forward with.
We could also vote that and come back and amend it if we decided
But
we want to amend it.
As a new member, can I ask what might be a simple question? So for general stabilization, I've read through a lot of this, a lot of content to take in. Are there specific restrictions that would hamper or hinder the use of these funds that may be much better to put in another fund, as you're suggesting?
The general stabilization is basically your house insurance. Okay, if you have a real problem, then the general stabilization is for, quote, emergency use. So if you think of that as your house insurance, then what Mark's saying is, do I want to put an extra rider on it if I think I'm already insured high enough? And I'm just trying to put it in terms. Right. And I personally don't have a good answer for it. So
I mean,
I'd be okay either way. To be
There could be
perfectly
advantages to putting it towards a capital project to reduce the borrow, or towards the CPC and getting the match, right?
Vehicle stabilization fund, there's a number of different things we could prioritize and say, we know that we have X, Y, and Z coming up, so let's.
I don't feel strongly
Tuck it
about
there
it.
for now.
I don't feel strongly about it, like enough to hold it. But,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, so I think a lot of the conversation was because the unknown that we're looking at 2-3 years ahead of us is, and I think Mr. Venuti's thought process was, because it is unknown, this, and everyone did a phenomenal job closing a $3.5 million gap. We don't know what next year has to offer. So as it gives us that little flexibility, that leeway, and the leeway can be changed because this is going to be reviewed every single year. We're going to get into a habit of doing it every year, and we know that. And I think it was through the suggestion of the Select Board to the Finance Committee to get back into the habit of every single year. So because it's voted in this year doesn't mean it can't be based upon revenues.
I would actually argue this gives you less leeway, though, because this says even if we are at whatever we consider the safe number of 5%, we're putting in money into this account first, right? It's less leeway. We don't have that money, that $100,000 that we're putting into this account to spend on other projects. It's less leeway. And I'm not arguing against this account. I think this is an important account, and we could argue that the number should be 6% or 7% or something else, and I'm okay with that argument too. It's the $100,000.
So Mark, outside of that, then is there language that you could soften it as opposed to just removing it, where, as opposed to will, or what is it? It's more, this is an absolute. We could change the
Easiest thing would
language.
be to add, establish as a recommended.
You could put may, we could put
We
language.
could add a recommended minimum deposit.
That's fine.
I think I'm comfortable with that. I mean, that's.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay.
So basically be
And then
for
if
a
there's a
recommended
strong-
minimum.
Yeah,
annual
because if
deposit.
there's a strong feeling that we have something else we want to spend it on, that's fine.
okay.
I'd
Agreed.
be okay with that if you want to modify that.
Yeah, so now it reads, item 2, page 7 of the red line version establishes a recommended minimum annual deposit to the general stabilization of $100,000.
Yep, instead of minimum or recommended.
All right, that's fine. Okay, all right. Chairs mind if I continue?
Still says minimum, just
Yep, it is, yep.
Is it okay if I proceed forward? Sure, okay. So.
Excuse me, are you guys okay with that, adding it before we, okay, yep, okay.
All right. The next piece is section 25. I believe this is a new section, I think, or about specifically regarding Littleton School Department. Some of the feedback we received from at the sessions or the meetings that we had was the desire for both the Finance Committee and the Select Board to see more information from the school department and more specifics about line items and how and where that spending is. So, so basically, we'll first of all be looking for the school committee to vote to accept Section 25 of the financial management policy. The intention of this is not to be prescriptive per se, but to ensure that the school committee's on board with this as well. So this would also require a vote of the school committee. So even if you voted today, we'd be asking, essentially submitting something to the school committee that we potentially would have an affirmative vote of both the select board and the finance committee support this. But basically the kind of information that the group would be looking for is the line item budget data by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or DESE. Basically wanted to see actual and budget data with dollar and percentage variances. Again, more like what you'd see in our traditional budget, because which We get a little bit of that from the schools, but the idea is to want to see more. Updates on reserves and revolving fund revenues, and expenditure showing both actual and estimated accounts that would be submitted annually. Information about the school choice account, and also that excess balances in the school choice account would be used by the school department for one-time expenditures when possible, similar to the town's use of its reserves. So those are sort of the big picture. Also of note, any unspent appropriation which falls to free cash will be deposited in the school building stabilization fund to fund future school capital items at the next town meeting once the funds have been certified by the state. So the idea there is that for the schools, if there is some underspending, that they would get the benefit of that through the school building stabilization fund. So essentially saying if you underspend, you will also benefit from this because you'll be able to reinvest this in your capital needs. So that's a bit of a change from what we've been used to.
On that section, it probably should say any unspent school appropriation, not any unspent appropriation.
I think they take that as a friendly amendment. School department, is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we added section 25, basically encouraging transparency.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be received well.
We also had the chair of the school committee on with meeting with us at that, so that input was provided. But again, this would be that once you vote on this with the amendment, then it would go to the school committee, and they still would have to come forward to support it on their own.
On an annual basis, the Fincom and Select Board would, along with the school committee and any admin, would review the policy and recommend changes. The school committee would basically ratify section 25 and then, acknowledge the rest. But the responsibility for the major financial policy is with the select board and the finance committee and administration.
Yeah, so Mark, this every year,
Yep.
that's a new piece to this, because we've gone several years without policy
Right.
review. This
Yeah.
actually will now mandate.
Well, I
we
think it
will
said
need it.
annually before, we just,
Well, it
Right.
said annually, but I think.
It's after the
you'll see
elections
it did.
now,
It's the first two, I think we said within the first 2 weeks in June we'd meet and start that process every year. So there's a time frame for, Ryan to wrestle us all into a room and start the process again. Okay, so it's on the calendar.
perfect.
and it could be a one-meeting year. This one just had a lot of review.
But again, it's been several years since we did it, and shame on all of us for not doing it, but we didn't, so.
And to that end, then other items that we have, section 26 is the budget calendar.
I just have a question on 25 too, though.
Sure.
25F, which is talking about, has that been an issue in the past with prepaid expenses and the fluctuations in budget year on year?
It's not so much an issue, Jonathan, but basically saying that the prepayment's been happening on a regular basis. So if the schools were to stop making that prepayment, then that would create other budget
It's a deviation.
ramifications. So the idea of it is to say, if you have been doing it, you need to continue to do it so as to not create a ripple effect for the remainder of the budget.
Yeah, by not doing that, you create a step function gap. And when in the budgeting process, if you end up with a step function in the budget, it normally ripples through the rest of the budget.
I just didn't see it mentioned anywhere else, so that's why I was asking if
Yeah,
there's
no,
something
I-
specifically with, the school department, if there's
Yes.
certain
That's
charges.
specific to the schools because they are allowed to make certain prepayments.
Yep.
And that's really what this is intended to address. And to say that if they were to stop making those prepayments, it would again have the ripple effect which Fred had mentioned. So, but that's really one of the few examples where we have that luxury of, well, not luxury, but have the opportunity to make prepayments.
Okay, so it's just about the consistency, because they have the ability to do so,
Right.
maintain the same decision on whichever charges.
Exactly. So,
It's half our budget.
right. So the remaining two items that we have is the budget calendar. We've added a new element, which would be a pre-budget session, and this would review the latest budget projections for a 3 to 5 year period. So really kind of set the tone before we enter into the budget session in terms of what we're looking at in terms of budgets, budget surpluses or budget deficits, and kind of give us a broader sense of how we plan for the upcoming fiscal year, as well as thinking a little further on down the line. So, and that would take place with the select board, the finance committee, and basically also inviting the school department as well, if they're inclined, to participate as well. Last thing is, and then we talked a little bit about this earlier, that the financial policy working group will convene each year and review recommended changes to the board. As Gary had said, it might just be once. We may need to meet multiple times, but it depends on where we are. This year we met 3 times because we hadn't had those meetings recently, so I think there was some catch-up we were playing with that. So these are the recommended changes. I would note from our conversation we had 2 amendments to what was stated, which was under Section 13, General Stabilization, to say establishes a recommended minimum annual deposit to the General Stabilization Fund, and item under Section 25G, any unspent school department appropriation, so specifying what that would be. So those are the 2 changes that we talked about here. No. So with that,
I actually had 2 that weren't actually edits. So in section 21, item 8, which is at the top of page 12 in the new, it says, minimum appropriation to the capital stabilization fund will be made annually in the amount of at least 1% to the general fund capital plan. But we never defined what the general fund capital plan is anywhere else in the document, so we might want to say what that means.
define the capital plan.
Okay.
It's a new term that was added there, so it just needs to be. And
We
do have capital, we did, in the glossary of terms, we do now have capital expenditure and an appropriation for assets or projects costing at least $5,000 and having a minimum useful life of anywhere from 3 to 10 years, depending upon the asset. Examples are construction, major repairs or replacements to capital facilities or equipment acquisitions, etc.
Right. But is that what is meant by the general fund capital plan? Because that looks like a specific term, but it's not actually defined. So it should that should either refer to one of the other terms, or that term should be defined.
Fair enough. We weren't recommending any changes. Have been in the existing policy. I think I've always taken it to be just a capital plan. But
if we wanted to change it,
just a little. Yeah. We can look into that.
The other one that I had a comment on was section 22, item 1, which is debt exclusion. It says identified one-time revenues may be added to the debt exclusion fund and allowed to accumulate from year to year in anticipation of a major project. Funds here may be used to reduce the amount of debt needed to place when the final bonding occurs, thereby reducing the level of excluded debt. That's not what we've been using the debt exclusion fund for at all. That's what we're using capital stabilization funds for. So should it be under the debt exclusion or somewhere else?
So could you clarify that? So the way we're using it now is we've defined certain borrowings that we offset. We utilize this fund to offset some of those borrowings.
So what we've been doing, like the senior center, we had a capital stabilization fund that we put in, and we did this just recently for Shaker Lane, where we put money in to reduce the amount we have to borrow.
Right.
The debt stabilization fund is the debt exclusion fund is what we're using, so that debt that is already excluded,
right,
we're not charging you out.
To draw down what people are having to pay on an annual basis.
Right, but that's not what item 1 is here. Item 1 here on that page is saying that we're using it so that we're borrowing less money, which is what we've been using the capital funds stabilization
fund, right.
Right, so this one's saying that we're using the debt stabilization fund.
The debt exclusion fund.
Right. So I don't think that should be in the debt exclusion section, because that's not how we're using.
Capital stabilization.
Yeah.
Robin,
Yeah, well,
is that distinction accurate? If it is, then it should be
You're
changed.
still borrowing the same amount. That's what you're saying. You're not reducing the debt with the debt exclusion.
No, we're not.
You're correct.
So that, item 1 should be really stricken, I believe, right? Everything in item 1 is already covered by a capital stabilization fund.
As opposed to moving it, you would delete it.
Well, wait, doesn't the
Yeah.
first sentence of item 1 describe how revenues are added to the debt exclusion fund? And isn't that accurate?
No. No.
We don't use one-time revenues to add to the debt exclusion stabilization fund?
One-time revenues.
And allowed to accumulate. We don't, from year to year, in anticipation of a major project. We do not use the debt stabilization fund to accumulate for a major project. We use it to pay down existing excluded debt, not excluding.
I understand.
Not that we haven't borrowed yet.
But it,
I think we do it proactively as well, Mark. I think it's.
No, we use the capital stabilization funds for that. The senior center capitalization fund we set that up to put in, and we use that money, so we're going to borrow less.
But Mark, I think to Chuck's point, I don't
we're
think
not.
that it's necessarily exclusive, that you could use it in that way. And that's what the language is trying to say. You could use it to prepay, or you can use it to just.
And we have, not necessarily on the senior center, but we have.
Yeah.
on other projects.
It's not how we necessarily do it, but you could do that.
Right.
And then the first sentence of item 2, this account may also be used as a funding source for portions of existing excluded debt service as a way to reduce the overall tax effect of the excluded debt, does describe exactly what we're doing.
Yes.
So we should take that sentence and put it in place of the second sentence in item 1 and remove the also.
Item 2 describes exactly what
Yes,
we're doing.
okay.
Item
so-
1 does not.
Right.
So,
Except for the first sentence of item 1, I contend is still accurate. Doesn't necessarily need to be there, but,
Maybe that'll be next June's review.
okay.
we'll invite you to next year's review.
so,
You'll align it.
okay, so those are my only comments on that.
Well, does the select board want to
Yeah.
change it or not?
I think we hold off. If it's something we want to review, we just kind of brought it up and have some discussion here, but.
There's some redundancy
It should
to
go,
it.
there is some.
But
I think it should go in front of the policy review committee. I think table it until next June when gives us something to meet on.
It's not affecting
Well,
anything
that's
where
fine,
money
we
goes.
can reconvene.
Alternatively, too, we can answer some of these questions, and, we can still put the vote back to both boards respectively. You don't necessarily have to meet together. We can try to get some clarity on that, because I think there's some elements in here that we would want to have for the upcoming year, that another committee wanted to put in as soon, not necessarily as soon as possible, but for this upcoming fiscal
Put them in
year
place, yeah.
cycle. So, but we can get some more information.
But that's not a proposed change currently. It's currently in there, so.
Yeah.
You comfortable with that?
I'm okay leaving it, but I don't think it's what we're currently doing, so.
Would it make sense to shift it to number 1, just reverse the 2? If you have one that we are doing, but we still want the option to do the other, you can just change the numbers?
If we made number 2 1 and put the also into
The new number
the
2.
current one,
Yeah.
or the / new number 2,
You okay with that?
then that's sort of, this is where we are, and this is also an option.
Yeah.
Do you like that better?
That's, yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Okay.
Okay, so we can rework, so what specifically are we doing? Are we moving?
So number 2 is becoming number 1.
2 becomes 1.
The
Okay.
word also is removed from number 2.
I mean, that's actually a pending change. That doesn't need to go back in front of
And then number 1 becomes number 2, and the also is added into that, into the new number 2.
Okay.
So basically, the primary use is number 1, is now number. The primary use is a funding source for portions of existing excluded debt. And also, we can be used to reduce the amount of debt needed to be placed when final bonding occurs.
Okay. All right. Well, how about if we just, we rework, we put get some more information and then bring it back to the respective boards just to vote on with those changes? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
One other very minor thing, in the definitions, debt service, there's a repetition of particular bond. Page 18.
Debt service?
It's for a particular bond.
Okay.
Minor.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Really emphasizing.
Really? Just put a comma.
Okay. Any other feedback? Nope. Okay.
Is there anything drastic enough in there to hold this up? Or just
No, I think we can,
You want to vote on it?
if Ryan's comfortable with it, we can vote on as amended.
Sure.
Okay.
Is it up to you?
Public comment?
Are you okay?
We got a hand up, but we're taking public comment.
Make it quick.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Ron Brown, 25 Juniper Road. So I thank everybody for allowing me to speak at the working group sessions that you had. I felt I learned a good bit. However, I want to emphasize to the broader group that I went with an eye towards trying to understand how challenges confronted by the town, such as the Orchard or MBTA, vote, how they would be worked into and solve challenges is within these financial policies. To that end, I appreciate the conversation held tonight with regard to the 100K. That's exactly the sort of flexibility that I was similarly probing. And on page 11 in section 21, item number 6 of the guidelines, something that Ryan addressed earlier, if I couldn't understand it completely, but if there in fact was almost 100K of snow, unused snow and ice deficits, my question is, on something like that, can that be used within the policies to fund something like a one-time thing like 25 acres worth of trees that need to be removed from town property? So thank you for hearing it out. It's really that spirit of flexibility that I'm trying to look for in these policies, so that you're not handcuffed or not predetermined and preset with regard to how monies are spent. Thank you.
Okay, ready? Move that the select board vote to approve the amended financial management policy as amended at our current July 15th meeting.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Gary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Have a motion? If you guys aren't comfortable voting, we can review this at the next FinCom meeting.
No, I'm fine, I just didn't know, where those three people not here, if they had any input. I mean, Steve obviously doesn't.
Right, so it's up to you. If you're comfortable voting, I'm fine with it. If you want to wait, we can wait. Either way is fine with me.
I'm comfortable with voting.
Okay, we'll take a motion to accept the amended financial policy.
Make a motion to accept the amended financial policy.
I have a motion by John, second by Jerry. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good.
You can go home if you want.
Yeah, that's
Your motion.
It's not even my bedtime. We
Can I make a motion?
No. I know. My favorite motion of the evening. Have a motion for the Finance Committee to adjourn. Somebody, so we can go home. A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Now the room feels really weighted to one side. I'm off on my own.
Okay, I'm going to, can I request a change to order, just on the, where it's the Rotary's all here? And I know we...
Sure.
And then the,
Why don't we do the liquor licenses, then we'll do the Rotary?
Yeah.
So, Okay, vote to approve 3 one-day liquor license for Millward Brewing, doing Modest Roots. Anyone want to speak to?
Hi, Roberta Millwood, Millwood Brewing, DBA Modest Roots Brewing, 45 Middlesex Road in Tingsboro, seeking a one-day liquor license for Theo's Garden Markets, Market Gardens.
Nope. Any
comments? Any board?
Everybody good?
No, it's all good.
Move that the Select Board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, to issue a special license, also known as a one-day liquor license, to Roberta Millward of Millward Brewing Company, DBA Modest Roots Brewing Company, for wine and malt beverages for 3 separate community events at Theo's Market Garden located at 571 Great Road, Littleton, Mass. for the following days and times: July 18th, 2024 from 5 to 8:30 p.m., August 8th, 2024 from 5 to 8:30 p.m., September 5th, 2024 from 5 to 8:30 p.m.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Should be a fun event.
I think Ryan's got something for Jim.
Yep.
Something for you.
Do you have it?
Oh, yeah, licenses, yes, thank you. Yes, we'll get those signed, so I think, I don't,
Millward.
you paid?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna take you on your word. Okay, just,
We got a guy.
That's Jan.
His name is Hacksaw.
I think, we just keep going and I'll look at this, okay? So,
Rotary, update from the Rotary Club. Who wants to speak for the Rotary?
The newly elected president.
Visual aids.
Wait a minute. That looks like a Happy Gilmore check.
Nice. It is a Gilmore check.
In the back of the Nova.
Yeah, stand up, get up here.
So I'm Denise Moniz. I'm the current president of the Rotary Club of Littleton. Beside me is Chris Alphin, who is the past president of the Rotary Club of Littleton, along with several of our members. Earlier this year, we decided at the end of our fiscal year and end of a presidency and start of a new presidency, we would draft a letter for the Select Board to just highlight everything that we do in town. I think it's important to let people know just who we are and what we do, and to say thank you to all of you for allowing us to operate as a club in town, and your assistance with some of the programs that we do, your volunteering, helping us out. So to highlight what we did in the past year, we sent a letter out with everything that we were able to do. I didn't bring a copy of that letter with me. But that was under Chris's presidency, and we got quite a lot done. But one of the things that was pretty big to us was the TRED Fund and the needs of the TRED Fund. So with that, I'm going to let Chris take over and go over with what we did for the TRED Fund.
Well, we, back in October 15th, exactly 9 months from today, we donated $5,000 to the TRED Fund out of our Rotary account. And it just didn't seem like enough. You know, I know it was a help and everybody thought it was, you know, good and terrific and everything, but it just didn't seem enough for the people that, you know, were struggling. So we came up, we had to find ways to raise more money so that we could do it. And one of our members came up with the idea of having the carnival in town. And we came to you, we asked you for the entertainment license, which you were very graciously granted us. And then we went and we spoke with Sal Lapoli to see if we could use this property. And of course, Sal, in collaboration with us, we had a great time, minus the raindrops, which actually I think made it a little bit more fun for the kids on some of those rides. You know, they came back and you had asked if it was a fun time. Well, you should have seen their faces. You know,
There are no lines.
yeah, the lightning helped a little bit too, I think. But anyway, we made a deal with Fiesta Shows, and like I said, in collaboration with Sal Lapoli, who was terrific. I got to tell you, he was very, very good with everything we needed over there at 550 King Street. And we did meet our goal, and we did want to come up and just let you know that we have a check for the TRED fund. So this one is for $10,000.
Nice.
So all total, this year, we have a total donation of $15,000 to the TRED fund to help the seniors and the disabled. And it was a great year. We had a great year in Littleton, and again, we wanted to thank everybody on the board for providing us the assistance and the help that we needed to do all these different things. And of course, Sunday we have the Apple Man, and we still need more volunteers. So if any one of you want to come,
I'll be out there. I'll be out there this year.
Thank you.
yes, I'm only teasing.
Sort of.
We can't just have Gino doing everything. You know.
Should we get a picture?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much.
Yes. Well done.
Can we get a picture?
Yes.
Yes.
Jim, get up there. You're on both sides of this. This membership isn't paying off for us at all.
I want to see Jim walking to the bank with that big.
You let us in there? I can't let go of the check.
Jim, get over here. You're a medal. Jim, you're a medal.
I'll take the picture.
Got it?
Yeah, it's fine, okay. Come on. All right. Okay. At the count of 3, everybody say Gino, okay? 1, 2, 3. Gino! Go! All right, good, everybody. Good.
Jim, I don't understand why you're not in here. Because you are being held in.
Listen, you got.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it was too late. But we pulled one offline.
You gotta get the carnival back?
Is there anything you should tell them about
We should set it.
Appleman?
I'll ask them.
You didn't know.
Excuse me, we have my sponsor.
So Appleman?
Sure.
Yes, at the town beach.
We like.
So Appleman is this Sunday, as they said. I'm the co-chair on it. And I know we have Mark signed up, and I think you're going to come down and lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us? Okay. And anyone else would like to help?
Cue cards, ma'am.
What?
Cue cards.
And we'd be delighted to have any and all of you help. We're really looking forward to it. This is our 20th anniversary. We invited every news station there is. We haven't heard back from at all, but we're kind of hopeful they'll show up anyway. And does anyone have any questions about it?
Can you still sign up to register?
Yes, last year we had 400 people sign up. And a week out last year, we were at 260. Today, we're at 308. And we ended up at 400 last year. So I think there's a chance we'll get to the 500 maximum. And that's a wonderful thing.
Wow.
It's all good. So we made 35,000 last year. We're hoping to make more like 45 this year.
Fantastic.
So, thank you.
And the website, you go to the website to sign up,
Yes,
which is?
you can sign up for both volunteering and for racing on the website. It's applemantriathlon.com. And what else would you like to lead me to say?
Community service?
What?
Kids can get
Kids community service, yes. We have the forms filled out. We are happy to give community service to the kids for volunteering. So if any of the kids are going to be seniors next year and still need hours, they should come see us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Awesome. Appreciate all you do.
Okay, we'll go back to public input and members' updates. I'll start with you, Gary. You want to start, Gary?
Are we doing everything here?
Yeah, there's the list.
Yeah, I have a few things. Just wishing the chief Penard well. He had surgery. He'll be out a few weeks, but surgery went well, and hope to see him back at work in a couple of weeks. I want to thank the policy committee for, that's something, there was a lot of spider webs on that document, so it was good to get that cleaned up, and hopefully moving forward, we'll have it every year. Wanted to welcome Andrew Samarco, who started today, or yesterday? Today. Yeah.
Is that on Sunday?
Yeah, no, on Sunday. Well, theoretically, I guess, but in the town clerk's office as our new assistant town clerk. So, welcome. I know we approved him on the board or on the position last week. We had a couple passings over the last few weeks. Chief McCurdy's mother and Nancy Glencross, her sister. So I just wanted to recognize that. Deepest sympathies, I know, from the board, and everybody's reached out. Welcome, Sanjay and Jonathan, for the Fincom members. It's great to see volunteers on such an important committee in town. I just want to congratulate Denise on being president of Rotary. But more importantly, I think we're going to get into a member updates as far as the Nagog Orchard goes. And I know we've had a lot of discussion last meeting. I met over the last week, probably 6 or 7 individuals that I respect immensely for just kind of getting me up to speed on a lot of things, historical plus financially, tax-wise on the property and things like that. But I came to personal conclusion that we do need to have a plan of action for the sale, regardless of any RFP I had mentioned for a lease. We should be running absolutely at the RFP for a sale. And this would allow us, before town meeting, to hold these meetings like you had mentioned for the MBTA. So I think that's very important, that whether we get the RFP in and we screen the candidates, if you will, for the property, and then we bring those in front of a room full of people representing the town on what they think is the best, kind of like what we did with MBTA, get a feel for what they think the best potential owner for that property, just so we're ahead of it. If it does come to that at town meeting and we want to put this forward, I think it's critical. I know a lot of work went into this with the Orchard Work Group and you guys as well that were on that, but I also had to do a lot of research on my own just to get myself up to speed. And I think I'm at a point where I fully understand, after some of the discussion last week and some of the passionate discussion from members of the working group as well, why they were so passionate towards the sale and why I needed to soften my look at how I was looking at it as giving the property away. I did look into the APR and the restrictions on the APR, and I'm much more comfortable now than I am. Just looking at some of the other communities, we'll use Groton as an example, I guess, but others that have put land into an APR and then we'll turn around and sell it. They purchase the land, put it into an APR, sell it, so that the land remains with that APR. What else regarding the orchard? So I just think it's something maybe our next meeting we kind of dig into the details to give absolute guidance, and we can come to some type of a consensus on what we want to do, and what the sale looks like. If there's no home run going to be hit, I've been holding out for a home run leaser to come in and just blow us away, and I realize that that's probably me, my heart wanting it to happen, when I don't know if that's truly something that's out there. So I want to recognize that I don't want to go another year without something happening at the orchard, and I think we can get creative with a buyer. We can put restrictions on future sale of the property, a 10-year time, and also maybe look at if it's really a desperate need, we can talk tips, and I did look into that. And that would be a perfect example of why you might potentially use a TIF on a property. So that's really all I have. It's kind of a heartbreaking thing for me to say, but I do recognize, and I listening to all of you, speak last week and over the last several weeks, but also talking basically one or two people every day since our last meeting, getting some, insight and discussion, really hard questions that I asked and answers. I think I'm in a better place where I feel more comfortable if we do have to sell the property. So just wanted to make sure I got that out there. That's a big NAGOG Orchard Working Group update, or Orchard update, but I know you guys might have something else. But that's all I have. Thank you. I'm off the soapbox. Thank you.
Well, you took some of what I was going to say, and one of the things was reminding everybody about the Upman this weekend, congratulating Denise on becoming president, and obviously the Chiefs. One's done surgery, and Chief McCarty losing his mom. So obviously our thoughts, prayers, and condolences go out to the family. Kind of staying in that path, just mentioned West Lawn Cemetery. I think T.C. Bailey and his crew have done a fantastic job with pruning, trimming shrubs, and they're doing a really good job. They've got some summer help up there that's helping them kind of stay on top of mowing and weed whacking, and like I said, now they're doing some of the tree pruning and the shrub paring back and that kind of thing. So it's looking good. So I just wanted to give them some kudos.
So Mark and I met with MAPC on a week ago.
It was Friday.
Oh, was it Friday? Boy, time flies.
So Brian.
They are, I assume, Ryan, we didn't hear from them today.
No, we did not.
So they have not even been able to commit to a timeline of giving us an answer on whether they have the resources to run these meetings. They were, I think, they think that they actually have done a number of projects in very similar fashion to this one about town-owned properties that got developed, and they were optimistic they could help, and they had a framework to run these meetings. But they felt, I think, that Fall Town meeting was very optimistic. So, I'm really happy to hear you say that you are, that you're reconsidering your stance. I think that from my conversations with the working group, I think the feeling after the last meeting was that, why are we retreading this? We've gone through all these, we've had all these discussions for years. I don't have any objection to drafting another RFP for lease if we still want to go down that path. And I think we should continue to pursue the MAPC meetings, because I do think that that is the most important next step in an RFP for sale, so that we make sure that the residents, everybody in town, has really concrete input on the criteria for that RFP. I think that that was one of the things we committed to prior to town meeting, and I still feel that that's very important. I think that that will have an ancillary benefit of educating people about the process of sale and how it's going to go down, and what the person who ends up using the property is going to do with it, and how they can, what the things they can do with it. So we will continue to update you when we get dates and times from MAPC, and we'll move with all due haste to get those scheduled. And we may or may not be able to meet Fall Town meeting, but we will definitely aim for spring. So that's what I got. Is that accurate, you think? That was, okay. That's it? Yep.
Okay. Honestly, I don't have anything new, so.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a couple things. At the last Affordable Housing Trust meeting, we voted to proceed with a contract, or proceed to work on it, get a contract with Habitat for Humanity to develop the house on Tahatawan. It'll be a duplex that we're working with Tahatawan, or with Habitat to build there. There will be an affordable house. The Affordable Housing Trust also signed an MOU with the CPC on how the CPC funds will be spent, and reporting arrangements and things like that, to kind of get more transparency with the Fincom. The Affordable Housing, I've been working with the Affordable Housing Trust. We have a financial advisor and a realtor coming to talk about the economics of senior housing on August 21st in this room. I forget what time it is. It's in the early afternoon. I went on the Spec Pond boat tour to see the invasives, and I think I saw that they just did a survey and they're getting ready to start the work. And last week, Acton had an electric vehicle petting zoo, and I was over there, and I think the TA was over there and a couple other people. They probably had 15, 20 different types of vehicles, a lot of municipal vehicles. They have at least 2 Lightnings in there, one in the police department, one in facilities. They have a Mustang that the police department has, plus they have a EV van that they use for facilities to, it kind of looks like the modern version of the LCTV van. Yes.
Inspection services.
Yes. So it was all very good, very informative over there. So that's what I have. Do you guys have updates on projects?
Sure. So we have through our planner, through Maren, we have moving forward. The planning board is moving forward with amending the zoning bylaws in regards to for 2 things: consolidate and meet current state regulations as it pertains to marijuana, and reducing the number of grow facilities. So will be 1 for each category, and those categories are medical, adult use, craft, cooperative, micro business, and that is moving forward, as I had said. MBTA, the state has acknowledged that our submission for the MBTA communities application has been received, so we will proceed forward and wait to hear back from them. Some very interesting data points from the building department. Over the past 2 weeks, they have conducted 117 inspections, brought in $16,000 in revenue. They've had 55 requests with 74 permits issued, and some of those permits issued were from beyond 2 weeks ago. Some of them were finally issued. Questions and answers went back and forth, so that's why the numbers don't line up. We also want to look for additional permits for the 242 King Street wastewater treatment plant. That is proceeding. 36 King Street, permit for the full renovation as that project is moving forward. And 550 King Street, because there is a tenant that is moving in there on October 1st. It's 70,000 square feet. It's going to be, the owner of the facility is allowing the tenant to grow into their space. Year 1, it's going to be 25,000 square feet. Year 2 is going to be another 25,000. And year 3 is going to be 20,000. And that is, so there has been a general renovation permit that has been issued to a contractor to get that space prepared for it's a high-tech firm.
What was the move-in date, potentially?
October 1st.
This October?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Is that one of the buildings? Is that the entirety of one building, or?
500,000 square feet there.
It's what?
500,000 square feet in total.
Yeah.
So it's not even,
It's a piece.
okay, it's like one of the floors of one of the
Yeah.
buildings. Okay, all right, just,
Back corner.
got it, okay.
Something like, yeah, exactly.
The restroom.
And with the help from Diane Dickinson, PR, Parks and Recreation and Educational Community, we have an EV charging station at 300 King Street. There are some lines that were going to be corrected in regards to parking for that service. And they are also going forward in their fall and winter submissions right now on all their programs, so they're accepting applications. So please, plan ahead. LCTV, video production, is going to conduct a free video production workshop over the next 2 Wednesdays from 7 to 9 p.m. And it is open to all ages. And the purpose of it is to teach and edit individuals that want to edit their own videos, family videos or anything like that. So that will help them do that. And also there is going to be a public service announcement on some cooling setters that's going to be issued tomorrow through LCTV. And one last thing is, so as what was originally shared about a particular staff member, we've had a couple staff members that have who lost some loved ones and their families over the past week, and I was so dearly impressed with the team, the staff here, the select board. Everyone came together in support and did an amazing job, and expressed very sincere thoughts and sympathies to those two staff members for their losses. And that's a first for me in this government. So I'm very, very impressed and proud of Littleton on many levels. And that's it.
Just one quick thing on the MBTA zoning. Are we going to need a placeholder article for fall town meeting just in case we don't get approval in time? Because we can't go
We're
ahead.
going to have one
later.
anyway, Mark, because I think there was some I don't know, Scrivener's errors that need to be updated anyway, so we're planning on that. So just a couple other things to add to Jim's updates. The board has your retreat scheduled on Wednesday from 2 to 5. Please don't forget about that. And the other thing, as it relates to NAGOG, it's something for the members who are on the select board representatives to the committee. One thought is to, with Gary's update tonight, my understanding is that the working group was trying to understand what's their next task, what's their next mission, and one of the things a few things that would be helpful is that if we actually do put out an RFP, it would be very helpful to get a sense of what criteria you'd want to be evaluating with that, in terms of if we put it out for sale, what are the components for which the ad hoc working group would want to see at the site, and how would you weight those different components? So that's kind of a critical part of the RFP, but one in which I think we could really use their feedback. As well as, I think when we were talking about this initially, if we put the RFP out for sale to get ready for a recommendation to town meeting, would we be looking to have the committee essentially serve as the group who would be doing the grading on the matrix? That they would develop. Here's the criteria, here's the matrix, and here's what our recommendation would be. So that's a decision for the select board, but something that you'd want to think about, but certainly would give something back to the ad hoc working group in terms of a reason for them to stay together and continue to provide service to the town. So just something for the board to think about.
Ryan, are there updates on Shaker Lane?
Let's see. So we're meeting Wednesday night as the committee. We've also been subcommittee met. We'll be reviewing last week. They met during the day. They're trying to determine different options and alternatives. We're going to hear some more about that on Wednesday. And I think where we might be working toward is potentially having an off-schedule meeting with the select board, school committee, finance committee, to bring everybody together and talk about what the alternatives are, including, looking at Wickham Field, looking at staying at Shaker Lane and what that would look like, and the different configurations and options there in terms of recommending something forward, because we're on a pretty fast timeline with MSBA, but we want to also keep the respective boards and committees in the loop in terms of what we're doing, so as well as the community. So it's a lot to balance in a very short period of time. So I think we'll probably be looking at doing some joint meeting to keep the boards updated, because that decision about where to place the school and what configuration of the school should look like is a very important one.
I could ask a question through the chair. That was a question I had when you're building a school, and excuse me if I didn't know what this is. Is it the select board's decision on where it actually ends up?
Well,
what's the mechanism? Where's the?
Depends on who has care, custody, control of the property we're going onto.
Right. So like
really, but it ends up as a school property.
eventually, so, we're
got it.
confused.
Proceed into the,
Yeah.
it would be a transfer.
So if it's on school property, then is it the school committee that decides where the project ends up?
I think ultimately, but I think that the way that, at least I've seen us work in town, it's been more collaborative effort. That's why we'd probably be bringing everybody together and hearing what the perspectives are of, from our committee, as well as our consultants who are working on this, which is our OPM and our designer, so that's why there'd be some value, again, to all meeting together.
Yeah, absolutely. No surprises.
Okay. Public input.
Rob Rounce, 25 Juniper Road. First, I apologize. I was out of line the last meeting. My demeanor was inappropriate. You extended phenomenal patience, and I thank you for it. I need to do better and commit to doing better to all of you. Jim likes to say that it's a team effort. I recognize that it is, but a number of you personally played a role, as did many others, in putting up signs in the Long Lake neighborhood area in terms of removing obstructions around corners that I think many of you were out there and saw and believed them to be dangerous. They've now been removed. The feedback that I get from locals is that, thank goodness, and I'm trying to emphasize, and I encourage you all to take the bow and try to emphasize as well. You're listening, you're acting, it's helping, it's being recognized. So I thank you for that. I also thank you for attending. I know a couple of you attended with Leon Weaver, the Spec Pond tours. I know Dave Barr has already done a tour on Lake Manwanaki, or as Westford calls it, Forge Pond. I attended both. I think they're extremely helpful. They're the education that you can get from somebody like Leon or Dave or Steve Haddon. It's invaluable. I'm trying to find somebody on Long Lake that can offer one as well, because each lake, as I'm experiencing for the first time with tours, has very unique and challenging nuanced differences that are quite evident from a tour. You can't get it just driving by or walking by. So I applaud those of you that, and I know others of you are way too busy, but anything you can do to get up to speed, I think there's going to be action needed, and I think it'll be before you. So preparation as you're doing, I think, is very, very helpful. Last, if there's any update with regard to Sarah's list pertaining to the orchard, I'd love to hear it. I'm trying to keep track from one group's meeting to another. That seems to be a hot item in the working group, and as much effort as you're putting into it and the updates that you've provided, that's a key component of, I think, action needed or consideration in following the bouncing ball. So thank you.
Mark, real quickly, the override that Westford had to deal with, I know there was some concern that they weren't going to be able to potentially share in the resource of Mattawanaki.
I have not heard any more.
No.
I don't know.
Okay.
Do you know more?
Yeah. So yes, I receive information from Dave Barr and Steve Haddon. I attended there's a group called the Friends of Forge Pond.
Yep.
I also spoke with a member on their broader organization, the equivalent Westward of the Clean Lakes Committee. He was on the tour, so we've shared some time. The situation is this. There is approximately $100,000, approximately, please keep in mind I'm not Dave Barr or Steve Haddon, that exists in previously authorized CPC funds from Westford.
Okay.
The Water Department of Littleton conditioned their current year, this year, contribution with a matching contribution, and it's the source of funds of the previously committed 100K that will be used to meet that condition. 100K is not going to last that long. The other item that was up was a override within the Westford town meeting. It was voted down.
Right.
So the only current year funding for Forge Pond from Westford was a $5,000 amount that, quite frankly, is more or less available for testing and not any remediation type activity. So I'm trying to work behind the scenes and below to try to rally awareness of the issue. I think that many town people, specifically Jim and other members and influential boards and committees that you are, relying on to give you guidance, there's a growing identification of the need to figure this out on a sustainable pathway of how to go about it. So I think that 100K is a solution for some period of time, but it won't last forever.
Thank you.
Jose Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Chairman, just a few comments here on observation here tonight in this room. If you're going to run that circulator back there, you're going to need to have the mic closer to you so that it picks up what everybody is saying, because when the Fincom was here, Fred is a very soft-spoken person. Barely could hear what he was saying, and when they made the motion, I don't know what that motion was about, because they all were so quiet and talking and saying, you didn't figure out what it was. I don't know if they got it through on the TV or not, but that's very important that they always say, use the mic, use the mic, use the mic. There's a purpose for that, so that people can get the message that the speaker is saying. I want to thank you on that. The other thing that I want to bring up here is regards to this $200,000 that was adjusted, which I raised my hand, but y'all voted on it before I could, and even when Fred voted on it, I still had my hand up on it, because I wanted to know all the time that's been spent with the select board and the finance committee. How is it that we have one element come up with $200,000? This is a small town. $200,000 is a big amount for us to approve the budget at the town meeting, and now have you come along and add $200,000 to one department here. Where's the money coming from? And we have a reserve and cash free. Where's the money coming from to fill in this gap that they're talking about? And for a department to be off that much in submission of their needs for the budget, something's wrong. Someone did not do their homework with regards to what the projections were, or whatever the case were.
Excuse me, Mr. Sanders. It also reflects an increase in revenues to cover the expenditures. So it's not just complete expenditures with no increase in revenues. Those increased expenditures are covered, sir, through increased revenues.
To increase revenue, that they're saying
Underestimated the revenues.
From that department.
Right.
It's a revolving.
Right. It's like we're raising the credit limit on their credit card, right? Like they went up to they made 1.4, but their limit was 1.3 in the revolving fund, and so we had to raise the limit so they could take in all the money that they wanted to take in.
So it's not that we're adding to the budget.
No, sir.
Okay.
And through the chair, Mr. Sanders, it's but you are right that there's better bookkeeping, and that's some of the stuff that was discussed tonight with Park and Rec. And there's an MOU that's in this packet, I believe, and also the finance teams here is working with Park and Rec to make some of those changes.
Yeah, because that wasn't explained at the town meeting.
Right.
And we voted a budget, and then they hear tonight here that you add this. It's like, well, what's going on here? Well, now at least we got a clear picture as to what's going on here. And I have one other thing here that I want to mention to you, and that is, Mr. Chairman, this board approved employee incentive program, and from my point of view, as a citizen in the town of Littleton here, I think you have failed our employees to a certain extent, because you have this approved and you put the money there. I think you had a couple of social situations that the employees in the town was invited to over here in the building here. And then they said, well, we need to get a policy in place with regards to this program. I'm just wondering how long does it take to get a policy in place with regards to this, because there are other communities that you probably can go in and pull a copy of theirs and adjust it to the town of Littleton. I think you need to put it on the fast track because it's obviously on the slow track here. And I think that Littleton can do a better job of this, Mr. Chairman. I really sincerely hope that you put this program forth and let the people know that you are concerned and that you're going to take care of this, because to me, the time lapse that has happened here, it may be excusable to a point before we got the town administrator, but I'm just going to give you a little edge on that aspect because I don't think that was a difficult task to come up with a policy, because to me, the policy should have been in place before you got the money. But that is not the way it happened. Thank you.
Yes, if I may, Mr. Sanders. No, please. So one of the priorities that I never need a microphone, so I won't need that. So, but one of the priorities that the select board had put in place when I got here was really identifying and recognizing the efforts by the town staff. Morale could be better. I'm not going to say it was low, but it could be better. We have all 5 select board members, Ryan, myself, everyone has worked very, very hard to do that. There is an employee engagement committee, and there is a tremendous amount of passion behind what's doing the right thing for all employees, and the employees recognize that. And with our constant communication and engagement with all employees and being involved with everybody, the conversations will continue, and people are, the employees are very receptive to the fact that this is not something that's been put on the shelf. It's constantly, it's actively discussed. There is that committee. I absolutely, as a matter of fact, I'm going to potentially look at engaging a couple more people to spearhead this instead of one. That individual is just they've got a tremendous amount of responsibilities, so I think we're going to share that responsibilities. But it is, the select board has made it one of their priorities for me to make sure that those employees are recognized. That helps for retention and attraction for new employees. And we are fortunate enough tonight to have an employee that the select board is going to approve tonight for, and you ready for this?
Go ahead.
The ADA stuff, new facilities director. During the interview, and one of the things that I had spoken to our candidate is, one of the priorities is going to be the ADA transition plan, and making sure and identifying that, and being very, very optimistic. We're going to, the approval will happen tonight, and the gentleman will start, and so, but that was one of the things that attracted Mr. Deborah here, was the energy and the support the employees had and the select board had towards the administration and employees. So we hear you, even though it's not out front. Behind the scenes, we're doing a tremendous amount of foundation building.
Well, I just wanted to ask you a question on this ADA. Is the ADA also is going to?
Sorry.
Chair, sorry about that. Through you to the town administrator, is the ADA going to be the facilitated manager for the town?
We have not discussed that specifically, but the transition plan will be that responsibility for the facilities director, so we will work into that. But we understand that has been a priority that should be done for the town. So let's first address the most immediate need, and then we'll work on future requests or situations.
Last thing, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest that you ask the LCTV to buy more mics, because we have people up here and you didn't even have enough mics. That's one reason why we weren't able to hear people. So if he's limited on the number of mics, we should have at least 10, because sometimes they go bad. So at least 10, I think you should have a dozen if you ask me.
We'll work on it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Laura Keeler, 75 Edsel Road. So we had a town vote in May to not sell the orchard. And so how is it that now an RFP is going to be put out to the community without, like, how does that work? I don't understand how that is.
We're going to put out an RFP in, hopefully by the end, in the next couple of weeks for leasing the orchard, and then we're
To
going to
lease
see.
it. I see.
Not
So-
selling the orchard immediately.
I see. So are you going to rework the lease to make the terms appealing to someone? I mean,
We're going to see what we can do, yes.
I see. Is there a way that that people can contribute to what's, what that is, how that looks, what like who's
Well-
going to decide what's in there? I guess
That's a good
Is
question.
my
We haven't,
question.
we
know?
haven't really worked on that out that much, but
Because
we
we
can
put it
talk
out many
offline.
times and it's never gone anywhere because the
So if
terms
you have
aren't really
suggestions,
viable.
feel free to email me.
Pardon me?
Email me if you have suggestions. Contact me and we'll work on it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the meetings are public too, so
Yeah.
anybody can.
But we don't know if the ad hoc working group is going to vet the RFP.
Right.
We have not decided who is going to vet the RFP for lease.
And we talked about just removing some of the restrictive language and some of the things that.
Yeah.
To make.
So it could just be the select board decides to go with a very standard, simple RFP.
I think where we left it was, if I may, was going to be the two representatives to the ad hoc working group, which would be Mark and Matthew. So, yeah, that's, yeah.
We're going to at least create a draft, but we didn't decide.
Update what we already have.
Yeah,
and review
but we
it,
didn't
right.
decide how it's going to get approved and
Correct.
released.
Okay.
Can I ask another question? What do you, can you say what you think you'll change about it that make it more appealing? Or
There were a number of clauses in it. For example, you had, the owner had to provide pick your own for a certain number of weekends a year. You had to do a retail farm stand. I can't even remember.
Groups.
Yeah, school
There
groups
was a
had to
bunch
be
of-
accommodated.
yeah.
So there are things like that that I think were too specific to an orchard and too specific to that orchard that probably prohibited a lot of people from applying.
And then what about the house of Lauren and all that sort of stuff that made it difficult for them financially? What are you going to do about that?
So we're still working on, we have to work that out. We don't know yet.
Anyone else? Okay, we're on to vote to facilities manager.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce the board to Eric Deborah. Eric, if you could come up to the mic. So as Eric's making his way up, we interviewed a few candidates with our committee. Eric comes to us as our recommendation to you, the select board, for hiring. Eric's a University of Lowell graduate. He started his career actually in Littleton working at Pondside in terms of maintenance, and did so well there that they at Beacon Communities then moved him on to a larger two tower. How big are the towers?
Currently I run 2 8-floor high rises in Haverhill. One of them's 146 apartments and another one's 32. Then we have about another 90 in Lawrence that consists of 3 buildings. So
Eric's a very busy man, so
pretty busy. I oversee 3 maintenance techs, and we basically are in charge of all the residential maintenance for those 5 facilities, 24-hour snow removal, maintenance, all that type of stuff. So I'm basically the manager of all that, make sure everything gets taken care of. I do the 5-year, 10-year, 20-year capital needs studies and present those to asset management. Actually, one of the first projects I did when I got to Haverhill was part of the reason I was brought to the site was because they were struggling financially and they couldn't really figure out why, and a lot of the stuff was from contractors, a lot of money with contractors, stuff like that. So one of the initial things I did was I developed a program to change all of the fluorescent common area lighting to LEDs, and that saved, we're expecting to save about 25% on the $100,000 a year energy bill. It ended up being almost, we saved about 35% with the cost of bulbs and the cost of having guys replacing bulbs and all that. So that was just a little example of one of the things that I kind of did when I got there. But overall, we've just been trending up and up, and it just really, the commute to Haverhill from Townsend to Haverhill has been the biggest downfall for that. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, so like to be a little closer to home, and from what I've seen with Ryan and touring some of the facilities, I think it's going to be a great fit, and I can't wait to get started, and I really appreciate you guys for giving me the opportunity to kind of speak about myself tonight, but without kind of taking much more of your time, if you have any questions.
So you think we have enough to keep you busy?
I hope so, yeah. If not, I'll find stuff.
We're always building more.
Yeah, I always like to find stuff. And one of my biggest core values for my team is that if there's a problem, don't just go and fix the problem. Figure out why the problem happened, and let's try and have that problem not happen again. I hate having reoccurring problems, and especially in the residential sector, it's a lot of customer service, so we don't want to be moving people in and having things break right away. And delivering a good product and good customer service is a huge part of what we do there at Beacon. And so yeah, if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
I am also, I can't wait. I'm happy to hear you talk about, there's no way I would ever vote against what Ryan and his cohorts decided, right? But reading your resume, I was struck by the sort of hands-on, like very practical stuff that you have highlighted. And I was a little worried that you had less administrative experience, but it sounds like you are all over the budgeting and planning. So I'm very happy to hear that. And
so that was the most difficult transition for me, from running Pondside at Littleton, which is 147 King Street. There's 96 apartments, wastewater treatment plant. So I kind of didn't have enough work really there. I had it running pretty good. I did 19 apartment remodels in the first year I was there. As still a technician, they had moved me from Framingham site as a technician. Something happened, and they were like, can you go run Pondside? And I was getting frustrated there because I wasn't kind of getting the promotion I wanted, and I wasn't really getting paid what I wanted, so I was going above and beyond, and started doing some of the work in the treatment plant, and solving problems that even the contractor couldn't solve in the treatment plant. And they were like, all right, well, we got to find a better place for you. And it was a lot of negotiation to get me to go to Haverhill, but I've been there for 7 years now, and $4.95 keeps getting worse. So
Hear, hear.
Except for COVID, that was a good time. Yeah, so I think it'll be a great fit.
Yeah, it was a good time. I was just going to say, when did this position get approved by town meeting?
Yeah, let's not go there. Let's just,
it's been a few years, we'll just say that. But
I think Eric was still in high school.
Welcome. I know this position is, Jim, it's your position, correct? You report directly to you? So, we're here tonight to approve the position, the grade, and everything, but I know that you'll, Jim speaks highly, big expectations, so, we're excited. This has been something that's been kicked down the road, and not just trying to find the right person.
Yeah.
But also before that, when we hit COVID, it was more of a budgeting issue, and it seemed to always be that position, like, well, we need a policeman this year, we're going to wait. We need a fireman, we need a name it. So this is great. We really recognize the need that the town could benefit from this position. So we recognized it 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
But it's great to see this come to fruition. So thank you.
Well, and I think I can help you guys out in a number of ways. And
yes.
like I said, on my resume, I got my 2A engineering license, so if you need help doing snow or digging a hole or whatever, I can still do that stuff, but, you know, I'm more onto the office and managerial, managing people and projects and stuff like that.
Don't tell Steve Yonley that you have that license.
You did, actually.
You've done it.
I shouldn't have told him.
You're going to be plowing, I guarantee it.
Steve Yonley, I don't want to be interested in the town administrator's job.
We'll probably end up inviting you to the Disability Commission meeting too, just, you know, talking about
I'm
ADA.
very familiar with the
Yeah.
ADA and all that type of stuff. We actually did, if you want me to go into detail, we did a big project at the Court of Inn, my big high-rise in Haverhill, and converted all, it kind of must have slipped through the cracks during construction because they never realized that all the ADA apartments had a cabinet under the kitchen sink. And nobody ever noticed it until we went to refinance it, and they said, you can't have the kitchen sink, or a cabinet under the kitchen sink because they can't wheel a wheelchair under it. So that was part of my job, is to figure out how we were gonna get 20 units converted into that in about 3 months, and we ended up doing it all, so, yeah.
Great, awesome.
First of all, I love the breadth of what you mean. Tree work, paint and stripes on Gillette Stadium.
Yeah, I kind of done a little bit of everything.
All good stuff. So you kind of had me at Zavarian Brothers High School.
Yeah.
So I'm a Hawk.
No, great. That's awesome.
He's a brother, so he's got my vote.
09, I might be a little,
That was just a couple years before you.
Yeah.
Jeff was 06.
19.
1806.
No, this is, really appreciate you being here, and looking forward to getting to know you and working with you.
Me too.
All right, ready for a motion? Move that the select board vote to hire Eric Durba as facilities director at grade 16, step 5.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You're good?
Good shaking hands. Yeah. Awesome. Welcome. Awesome.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was a secret handshake. You guys didn't see it.
The hawk shake? It was like the hawk
Don't worry about
shake.
it. Don't worry about it.
We're going to hear a lot of that.
Microphones picked that up.
The Assabet Regional Housing Consortium, IMA.
Thank you. Maren Toohill, Town Planner. The town has been a member of the Assabet Regional Housing Consortium since its inception, 2013, I want to guess. It's a way for us to have, the town to have access to housing specialists on a moment's notice at a very inexpensive rate. Town of Hudson steps up and does a lot of the administration of the process. Town of Littleton gets a bill based on our regional activities, and then any extra questions that planning department in particular has for them, they'll help us. They help make sure that we can get the paperwork right for affordable housing units, and then they often run regional affordable housing events, workshops.
So the Affordable Housing Trust at our meeting approved this going forward, but it requires a select board signature and vote.
Yeah, given that it's an IMA among 7 or 8 communities, the select board vote is requested.
So Mark, let me ask, is this this is something that we've never been a part of?
We have been a part
We
of
have been.
since its
So
inception.
so it's a renewal
Yeah.
of, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thought I had a little.
And it's in the $3,000 a year-ish range that the
yeah,
Affordable Housing Trust spends on this program.
The new quote that came in was lower than the prior years.
So, and it comes out of the Affordable Housing Trust funds.
Great.
Okay. Move that the select board vote to approve the 3-year intermunicipal agreement to renew Littleton's participation in the Assabet Regional Housing Consortium, ARHC.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Gary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, I will recuse myself for the next couple of
Votes.
Sit in front. If you can sit, can you come up and sit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'll speak into the mic. This will be a recurring theme tonight.
Actually, their mic's off, so
is it?
wander where Matthew was sitting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, which, yeah. Okay, that's fine, or we can do that too, yeah.
Of course, from LCTV.
Is it on?
Is the mic on?
I think it's just that blower at that corner.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so we have the social equity pieces of the HCA. Do you want to?
Yeah, so as we discussed before, the regulations require that the town of Littleton and all communities that host marijuana establishments adopt a social equity plan. You also have to have a grading matrix that you utilize in determining how to rank or how to decide to issue host community agreements. So tonight we have in front of you a draft social equity plan and a grading matrix. I do have to note that the Cannabis Control Commission is supposed to issue models of these documents, but has not as of this date. So these are our best guesses on what plans may satisfy the requirements of the Cannabis Control Commission. And so it's entirely feasible that in a couple months, I'm back before this body saying, hey, the commission wants to see X, Y, Z, but I just can't predict where they're going. Once the community has adopted the social equity plan and the grading matrix, you are supposed to upload them to the commission's web portal, which last check wasn't functioning, so not exactly sure how we'll do that, but we will have to share these with the commission, and they are supposed to review them and provide us with comments back in terms of compliance. So we should get some feedback. In practice, we haven't really been getting that. So again,
recurring theme we're having.
These are our best efforts on compliance.
They have some pretty strict guidelines for everybody else, though.
So yeah. So this is where we're at. This policy here is a suggestion. We want to make sure that it fits for Littleton. So if Littleton thinks that a different provision should be included or a provision that's been suggested should be tweaked to fit the community, I'm here to listen to that. We want to make sure that it's appropriate for this town and not just a one-size-fits-all document, but it's a good baseline.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, in some communities I've gone through it, in other communities we sort of just opened the floor, so I kind of turned to the chair on how you want to handle it.
I mean, I personally would like more time to go through this.
I don't want to vote it.
And share it and share my comments directly with you.
Yep.
I fully was expecting to see the state give us a model here, and I think that's what we discussed. So by August, I think, is the timeline August that they want it?
No, so the timeline was actually May 1st of 2024.
But they don't have, it's not up on their website, and they don't
There's no model. They've adopted general guidelines that suggest things like, if a social equity applicant applies, that you waive all of the fees. I mean, that's suggestion that they have on their website. I've incorporated that into this document, but it's not like they have a full template to share with communities at this time. I think that in Littleton, where we do have establishments asking whether they can come in, we have individuals that are interested in operating here, it behooves us to adopt something and tweak it down the road if needed, just so if there is a challenge, we can say, well, we at least complied with these provisions. They can't question a denial and also highlight the fact that we weren't in compliance with the regulations.
Can I ask a question? I think there's a couple of potential applicants or interested parties in the room. If we don't adopt the matrix and we just apply what we've done in the past, interview whatever applicants we have in hand, and make a decision before CCC figures out their act, we're still in compliance because it hasn't been enacted, correct?
No, it has been enacted. So the regulations are in effect. Yeah, so the regulations are in effect. They require anyone that is reviewing host community agreements to have some type of grading matrix. That matrix needs to be posted online. So where we do have interested applicants, you know, it is in our interest to adopt a grading matrix. Caveat being, some communities are just giving a host community agreement to everyone. You know, we have a zoning process that they have to go through. So in that case, I would say your matrix is, have you provided all of the documentation we've asked for? Yes, check. We're giving you the HCA. And in that case, you wouldn't necessarily need as elaborate of a grading matrix because you're not going to deny. But if you are going to pick and choose and deny, I think a grading matrix is in our best interest as a community.
So we have one license.
One to give.
So this
And
is,
then this
yeah,
is-
so this is the interesting component of all of this is there is a provision in the regulations which has not been fully fleshed out that says if you are going to increase the number of establishments, then of that number that you're increasing it by, 50% has to be reserved for social equity applicants. So here we are not increasing the number of available establishments because that's set by zoning, but we are increasing potentially the number of available host community agreements. So query whether we want to say, okay, we know we have one available special permit, but we are increasing our host community number. Maybe we'll do two, one for a social equity applicant and one for a non-social equity applicant. It becomes a race to the finish, so to say.
If we did engage in 2 host community agreements, 3 host community agreements, the race to the finish was planning board zoning.
Exactly,
Get
it's
those
on.
Boxes checked. Could we make those conditional upon approval? And then once one of them makes it to the finish line, the other one's dissolved?
Absolutely. So we would have a requirement in there, and some communities are already doing this, that says you need to have all of your permitting in place by X date, operational by Y date, and based on our history here in Littleton with establishments getting their special permit but not becoming operational, I would absolutely encourage language along that line in any host community agreement, even if we do decide to just issue one.
I'm just asking because we've had this license available, we haven't been able to get it activated, and this might be our opportunity just to act.
Yeah.
You know, just let people come forward and interview and have a selection with the caveat being going to issue host community agreements conditional upon getting to the finish line and checking all the boxes.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, the building commissioner cannot issue a certificate of occupancy to more than one establishment. That would violate the terms of your zoning bylaw. So that's not really a matter within control of this body. This body just decides how many people are eligible to apply to the planning board for the zoning relief that is necessary.
I'm not trying to forego an equitable social equity establishment. I'm trying to say, what's going to be the quickest way for us to get somebody up and operational, for us to start getting.
Well, the social equity piece, I think, becomes very relevant if we expand our licenses too. I mean, now we have to have something in place. I think, and a lot of communities don't have anything yet, so they're just basically starting from scratch. Well, we're down the road 5 years waiting for this license to.
But if we did that, we'd have to go to 4. Because 50% have to be.
So if you were, when you say, so the way that the regulation is drafted, it's like increase the number of establishments that can be operational.
Yeah.
So to me, I read that as increasing through town meeting process, the number of retail establishments in town. I don't read that as anything to do with host community agreements. However, it's very poorly drafted, and so some communities are hedging and saying, you know what, if we're going to give more host community agreements, you know, we're also going to reserve some of those for social equity applicants to make sure that they're on equal footing, at least until the zoning process starts, when we are statutorily precluded from looking at the makeup of the business, right? We just, through zoning, we just look at the use itself, so. this is the body that looks at who is operating, and planning looks at what is being operated.
So, just for clarity here, if we're issuing an HCA now, we can choose to issue as many HCAs as we want, or we need to enact this policy with the grading system. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know there's a couple of applicants, I believe there's a couple of applicants in a row, so I don't know if you want to see where they're at, if they'd be open to, if we decided that we were going to move forward and see what we get, just see where they're at.
So if we opened up to HCAs, and just say as many HCA, we're going to just issue all of them?
We'd probably have to put a time certain, like.
That was my next question.
August 1st.
It's up to this body, right? Like, so if you say we're gonna review HCA's on a rolling basis, and as they come in, we're going to approve them, provided all the documentation we've requested has been submitted, like showing that you've been registered with the state and that you're a properly formed entity, stuff that we can say clearly, black and white, yes or no. That's one option for this body. If this body wants to look at all the HCA's and decide, okay, this one is most advantageous to the town because it's in what we deem to be the area of this most significant need, then that's another option. But that's when you need to have a grading matrix so that you are putting in place like formalized grading criteria versus something that's subjective.
So it seems to me that if we do the approve anyone who comes to us with all the documentation approach, we're really giving up an opportunity to enact a social equity policy. We're basically saying there's no social equity policy because this is the only place where we can control that, right? This is the only place where we can help level the playing field for communities that have been disadvantaged or are currently disadvantaged. And so I tend to think that a grading matrix is something that we should really strongly consider.
Well, I think it's even more than that, right? If we basically have to approve all HCA's that meet the basic, you submitted all your documentation requirements, right? There's no favoring one versus the other.
Unless you deny one.
Right.
We can't deny any of them because there's no basis for denying them if our only your criteria is you submitted all your paperwork.
Right.
Without a matrix.
Without a matrix.
Without a matrix. But to address the social equity component, I think from the commission's perspective, if you're going to approve all of them, then there's no need to have a ranking method in your matrix because you're just approving all of them. That doesn't relieve the community of having a social equity plan, and your plan still needs to decide whether you're going to waive planning board fee, like whether you're going to encourage the planning board to waive their fees for social equity applicant, whether you're going to have a member on staff help social equity applicants through the process. So there are other tools that the commission is encouraging communities look at to help level the playing field. And I think in the commission's eyes, waiving HCA's is what they want to see. I mean, we've talked about that last time. This body isn't interested in that. But the next best would be just a blanket approval for anyone that at least submitted all of the required documentation. Not saying that's what this body needs to do. You have the ability to choose how many HCA's you want to issue and whether an HCA is warranted to any particular applicant. But if you do decide to do that, you need a grading matrix in place. Yeah.
Either approve them all or we have a matrix.
And if you really want to commit to social equity, you can reserve. You can say we're not going to issue any HCA unless it's to a social equity applicant, and we can talk about the steps needed to put that in place. But
we also have the ability to go to town meeting and expand our.
Absolutely.
If we realize we had a bunch, of applicants that meet some of these requirements, we've got a log of HCA's that we potentially would look to go to a warrant, maybe go to town meeting.
But you do have, with the caveat that if you are expanding the number of establishments pursuant to zoning that can be cited, there is regulations that suggest at least half of those that you're increasing it by need to be reserved for social equity.
So if we did one license after these two, it would have to be.
Have to
social.
be.
Okay.
So if you did.
That's how we.
Right.
That's how we can manage this. I think my recommendation is we look at this, and over by our next meeting, we are ready. We've given our comments or things that we would want to see in there, and then we can vote on a social equity model for our next meeting. I mean, is there, unless you're ready to vote now. I mean, I looked over this, but there's a lot. I was looking for guidance outside of just what you provided, and it's not. It doesn't exist.
Are there, I mean, we can also talk offline. I'm happy to have calls individually with select board members, but if there are specific things that you have questions on, I can either try to answer them tonight or offline. But like I said, we don't have the regulations themselves even say that the commission will provide a grading matrix model, and we don't have one yet.
No, your document's great. If I just look at, okay, we're fine with it, let's move forward. But I don't know what I'm going to be able to add without, like you said, come September, October, November, December, or next year when they come out with a matrix, it'll be like, ooh, we gotta update our social equity policy.
So, last time you were here, you kind of laid out the pros and cons of having HCA, not having an HCA. Some communities are just eliminating HCAs and say go through the process. And it basically takes us out of the equation if we eliminate the HCA. So I just didn't know if there was anything you could add to that.
No, I mean, I think the question for each community, and each community is going to have a different answer. So Littleton needs to think about what works here, but is what are you gaining from the HCA? What benefit is it providing to you as a community? And some towns look at it and say, you know what, we really do want to have a say in which establishment we think is most advantageous, and that's the one we're going to issue the HCA. Others are looking at it and saying, you know what, we want the ability potentially to collect community impact fees if something out of the norm happens any particular year. And other communities are saying, you know what, we are comfortable waiving it. We know that we have a good planning board process in place, and that is where we feel like it will be regulated. Town meeting has decided which zones are eligible for these types of uses. So it's really a decision for, you know, this body and town meeting to make, but you know, in Littleton we haven't been collecting community impact fees, and so then it really becomes, do you want to decide, you know,
that was the big part of the
things
HCA's was that literally is what drove us into the HCA. So I'm with one, I'll say it, less government the better on some of these things. So I besides interfering with a process that I think the question to me is always, are we comfortable? Am I comfortable with the zoning? Yes, we've worked hard on the zoning piece. And it's the planning board, I don't have reason to mistrust the planning board. So I'm kind of, I said it from the get-go, I thought we should do away with HCA's, but I know that might not be the popular model here, but.
So I'm talking about rolling, just as they come in, and then.
Or push, yes, and push them forward if they are complete, if that's one way, or we dissolve the HCA program for this. We don't do it with liquor licenses, right? Or any other side.
Well, I mean, any business that comes to town, this is, other than some developments, we don't really have HCA.
We have zoning, we have planning, so it's, I like, what do you guys think about that?
So I kind of like the HCA's in that I think there needs to be that grading matrix that we can say these are your requirements for going forward. And I wouldn't be opposed to having something similar for liquor licenses too, to say, you know, if you're coming for a liquor license, right, we're not going to, you know, deny you, but these are what we're expecting, right? That's basically what your grading matrix is, right?
We kind of do have that in policy number 2 in our policy document. Matrix. Whole application is kind of if they don't check those boxes, they don't make it through.
And I think there is a difference between cannabis and alcohol in this regard, because you are an enforcement body in regards to liquor licenses. Like, you could revoke if you wanted their liquor license, provided they have violated your local policies, bylaws, or state law. Whereas with the commission, with cannabis, we don't have that ability. So that's something that some boards like, is being able to have an agreement in place that says, this is what we're looking towards, this is what we expect you to do, and if we don't think you're meeting those obligations, you have to come talk to us, and that's built into the HCA. So it's a policy decision, not a legal one. And you can also waive some and not others, but that gets more complicated, but you can do that, and I've seen it done.
Sounds like that's up for a long conversation with you.
Yeah. So one way to suggest, it sounds like the board isn't ready to vote tonight, which is fine. So maybe I'm happy to collect feedback on these documents over the next week or so, and then I can combine it into one document, and we can recirculate it through a public packet, so it's, open, transparent, and with all of the feedback. That's one option for moving forward.
So I have a couple of questions on the documents themselves. In section 4I, there's something highlighted that says other equity measures. What were we expecting for that?
So this is really an indication that I created this, and there may be equity measures that you think should be added. In some communities, they do a one-to-one system. They'll issue one to a social equity applicant, one to a non-social equity applicant, doing like a one-to-one system. If that's something you're interested in, we can talk about it. It's really just an indication that there may be more you want to do here.
Okay, fine. And in the matrix, we don't actually have scoring criteria for any of these, right? So we'd have to come up with, like it says equity, under equity standards, equity parties, there's, 6 items. So do we have to say, like, item 1, you can get a score of, is worth 5 points, or, or, I don't know. I mean, we've rated that this is worth 25, sections worth 25 points, but we don't say how you accumulate them.
So these numbers 1 through 6 come directly from the regulations. It says that the regulations say, and I'm paraphrasing, that you have to take into consideration, your grading matrix has to give has to give consideration to these factors, and it has to be 25% of your overall grading score. So the way that this is drafted, if you see the bullet in grading criteria, it says proof that the business or individual has satisfied any of these requirements will result in a score of 25. So if you have someone that comes forward and is a social equity program participant as determined by the commission, they will automatically score 25 points in that column. So basically, any of the social equity applicants are going to start out at 25 points, whereas the maximum score that a non-social equity applicant would be able to obtain is 75.
Okay, so the first one doesn't have a grading criteria, and all the other ones are, if you meet at least one of these, then you score 25, and if you don't, you score 0.
It's up to this body, so
If you want to do 12 and a half points.
Yeah,
but if it's up to this body, if you're not there, then it's not. It's not really a grading.
Right, I think we need to talk about that. So like for the first one, I would say that if you control legal control of the property and you're in the documented and you're in the zoning district, you're automatically getting 25 points. So almost everyone will get that, right? And then down below, there are 3 prongs, and you could divide that by 25 or do something different. And the same thing for the final category.
I look at this, it's that first, you're not even going to consider somebody that doesn't meet that first block. So why the matrix right away is, you know what I mean? If they're not, if the business isn't in the zoning district, okay, well, you're eliminated. We don't even need to have the discussion.
Yeah, it was.
So it shouldn't even be scored. You're not going to come into Littleton if you're not in the zoning district. So what?
Yeah, and that's a fair point. I mean, we could remove it. I was trying to get to 100, and so, to be honest, but we could definitely take that out. I mean, that's fine. And recalibrate. We could also add potential scoring points. So for ownership, owner has been in Littleton or resident for 3 years of the last 5 years, that gets 5 points. Maybe it's documented business experience, they get 10 points. We can talk about how you want to break it up.
Did you have more discussion than just the matrix? Because the matrix is the one that, this is what this whole thing is about, right? So where we're adding points as a group is going to matter here.
Well, my other was, do we need to approve the matrix with the plan, or what? I understand we need to have both, but I'm not sure what the relationship is between them, if they have to be, like, I can imagine that going forward, we would update the matrix without necessarily updating the plan.
Yeah.
It's a policy versus a procedure thing.
Exactly.
Right, and I understand they're presented as one now, but they're really separate items going forward. So I'm trying to figure out how they play going forward.
Yeah.
More than right now.
I would definitely view them as two separate things for this board, and I would even encourage two separate votes. The plan makes mention of the fact that the grading matrix exists and will be used and will be uploaded to the website.
Okay.
So it makes sense that at the onset they're adopted at the same time, but to your point, absolutely, things change. You can update the matrix without needing to update the policy.
The one-to-one system, you say one equity, one non-equity, but just to clarify, that would be one set-aside and one non-set-aside. An equity candidate could still get that non-equity slot. We're not reserving slots for non-equity candidates, we're just not reserving them. They're
Correct.
unreserved.
Correct.
It's the minimum. Must have 50%, right?
So I think what she's talking about is if you look at the social equity plan, I highlighted, other systems. Some communities are saying we're going to issue one to a social equity applicant, and then we won't issue, and then the next one could be social equity or non-social equity. Then the next one will be social equity only, and the next one will be social equity or non-social equity. So if you wanted to adopt a system like that, you could do that.
When you say communities, are you basing this on we're a tiny community when it comes to licenses. I mean, what do some of the bigger communities have? How many licenses are out there?
So a lot of communities that are bigger, like Boston, Worcester, they don't have caps, right? And so it's very different.
So that becomes even more critical. I'm trying to get to the...
Exactly. I think lots of communities of Littleton size, where there are limited numbers, are just grappling with this now, and we don't really have like a standard practice. I tried to find policies of communities of Littleton size. A lot of them have something very general without any one-to-one social equity, just like we're going to encourage them to apply. Social equity applicants will have fees waived, just these very basic general policies. It's up to Littleton to decide whether you want to take like that next step and like reserve host community agreements or set aside, special permits, something like that.
I just keep going back to, we've been literally talking about this for probably 3 years, like what's our next step in order to fill that second license. If the HCA that was in place with was in play, and there's been a lot of conversations about we're losing all that revenue. So we do have one operator that is providing that revenue to the town, and I feel like we've kind of mostly dragged our feet. It hasn't been a priority, I guess, for us to move this forward. And over the past 6 months or so, we've gone through there.
We haven't had anybody in front of us.
Did we? There's been a couple of...
Well, we know why we kind of stalled, but...
yeah, there was another license in play.
Right, that's right.
So I think if we had, and it was Napoli, when she was on the board, was talking about this and talking about if that other license becomes available, we should have something ready to go so that we could either advertise or just start accepting applicants and go through a similar process to what we went through before. Different applicants. So I think that obviously we have to put a policy in place, but if we do have any applicants can say right now, I'd support them the opportunity to put their best foot forward, and if we decide to engage in an HCA with those applicants, however many there are, we do that, and then under our existing, because we wouldn't have, well, the grading matrix would be, you said before, or we don't actually put this in place, that's just something just the planning board, or, so it's just a matter of getting through the process and checking that box. So I tend to lean towards, I guess, fast tracking, trying to get somebody in place.
Well, when do we have to have, if we approve this, how long do we have to wait? In other words, if we approve on the 29th, we have a meeting on the 29th. I mean, when can we set a time where we say we're going to look at HCA's on X? How far? Applicants, excuse me.
Immediately. There's
It could be August 1st. I mean,
the regulations don't speak to it, so whatever works from this.
Of course they do.
But I mean, I think the commission really leaves the local process to these bodies.
Yeah.
And so if you adopt a grading matrix at your next meeting and a social equity plan at your next meeting, and at that meeting, you could also make an announcement that, we are going to accept applications between now and 2 weeks from now, and we will review all applications received.
At our next meeting.
I think the social equity plan does make reference to the fact that you will notify the commission's equity division of the availability so that they can post it and share it with social equity applicants that they know are looking for a location. So you may want to build in, enough time for that process to happen, but I don't see any reason why you need to significantly delay after you accept the grading matrix.
So once we have, I'm sorry.
If you do one, yes.
So once we have this grading matrix in place, we can then decide we can decide that we're going to take any applicant that scores over X and issue HCAs. We can take, or we can say we're going to take the highest one, right? We can do either of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we just have to say what that policy
State
is
that ahead of time
before we go forward.
Post it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the additional, as much clarity as you can provide to your applicants, the better. So if you could even discuss that tonight. It's on the agenda, and decide tonight. You're going to accept anyone that scores over 50, whatever the number is, or we're going to accept only one, and that's the way we're going to move forward.
You're not comfortable with doing something like that, right?
I'm comfortable. I mean, I'm comfortable with the HCA's for things. Just doesn't seem like it's. I'm not seeing necessarily the benefit where we only have 2 licenses. If I was sitting here on a board, that had unlimited licenses, this, we're going to be talking about this and ironing out. But I'm kind of stuck on. We have applicants. So you just mentioned there's applicants in the room. There's applicants that we've seen. We've got emails that have interest. I'm more of let's just push these forward and let's planning go, or we review them. We review them for completeness. I'm just, before we even talked about social equity policy, I was having trouble with the HCA's to begin with. When I came on the board, I was just, what are we doing? Why are we having this? They've taken away all of our teeth to enforce any type of income outside of impact fees and things like that, outside of straight taxes. To me, it just didn't.
It gives us a voice though in the selection process.
Right, that's the part that sticks with me is the idea that if we don't have those community agreements, then it's literally just a race to the permitting process. And if we're okay with that, we're okay with that. I'm not sure I am. I kind of want some sort of say in who's coming into our community and operating this establishment.
Okay.
Even if it's just the pro forma, I was thinking about the liquor license analogy, right? And yeah, as long as the 2 chiefs sign off on a one-day liquor license, we're like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
But at least we've had that opportunity, right? And at least you know, in this case, the chiefs have that opportunity. And so I think there's something to be gained by having that process in place and me having that requirement that they go through that process.
Also, this matrix has things other than social equity. I mean, it says like.
No, there's a lot to it.
Owners have been in Littleton residents are favored, right? And things like that. So if we.
Experience.
Right, so there's things we bring to the table in this HCA matrix process.
I mean, I'm not even saying I'm not 100% sure that I want a grading matrix necessarily. I do, but
You want to review.
even if we decide to approve every HCA request,
You want to
as long
see
as it meets the criteria, I would like to see.
Okay.
That's kind of what
It's good to know what's happening.
If there's somebody that's kind of in the funnel right now and waiting for us to make a move,
I do agree that we kind of have to make a move soon.
let's keep the ball rolling
So,
and give people an opportunity to open the business.
Right, my personal preference is we get, you know, I think this is a really good document, what we have, but I think the matrix needs more definitive scoring criteria in there, right? You know, we can say how many points you get for being a Littleton resident, you know, we can define the things that add up to 25, right? Is it in these things and determine what those are, right? And we can send those to offline and come up with, you know, a swag on what everyone would approve and vote it at our next meeting. That would be my personal preference.
And then you can go up concentric circles, you know, within 25-mile radius, so you're kind of in the same area. Are you a Massachusetts operator, or, you know, is it?
Oh, national.
Right, so Colorado's coming in, you know, it's.
I mean, that was a big deal in Colorado. Was, you know, how quick big cannabis moved in and took over.
So you're kind of back to the matrix. Talking, you want the matrix?
No. I'm
in favor of
agreeing with Mark. I understand where he's going, I guess. That's what I'm saying. So if we were to put a matrix in place, then I would say that we'd have to develop what those.
And every select board here on out would be developing a different matrix. I just don't.
Karen just said it better than I'm saying it. I'm for approving an HCA. It gives us an opportunity. Well, we're having every applicant come in front of us and approving the HCAs as they come through and let them go through the process. But it gives us an opportunity to speak to each applicant.
I think we need to have the matrix, and then we can decide at our next meeting when we're approving the matrix or when we're opening up the HCAs, whether everyone that applies gets in or you have to score better than 50 or 75 or whatever. We can decide that. Or we're only going to pick one. And I'm not arguing for one or the other, but I think the two are kind of independent of one another. I think we need to have the matrix, right? I think we should score the matrix, right, and have it. And then we can decide whether or not we're going to accept anyone. Everyone fills out the matrix, right? It's the same thing as going to the police chief and checking all the boxes, right?
Early license.
Yeah, and we can say that if you score better than 0, right, we're going to approve you, or we can say better than any other number, or we can say we have one license to give, we're only going to approve the top score. We can decide that at our next meeting. We don't have to decide it right now, right? We can decide to issue all HCAs allow multiple HCAs to go forward, and it's a race to the
If we're not obligated to go with the highest score through the matrix.
Is that true?
So it's not expressly stated in the regs. I think that if you have 3 grading, I think if you have 3 HCAs that come in, they all meet your minimum requirements, let's say 170, 172, and 174, and you decide to choose the 70, and there's a non-arbitrary and capricious reason for why you went with the 70, they're a social equity applicant, or really, you know, the area has a greater need, then as long as you can articulate that, I think it's defensible. That's where I land on that one.
But it's a sticky wicket, right? I mean, it seems unnecessarily complicated to me. I would say the better policy there is that anybody who scores over 50 gets an HCA. Not, you know, we're gonna choose one between.
I'm more comfortable with that than
I agree.
you start getting into, this turns into potentially some real legal.
There was a case came out of Salem. The court upheld the decision of the local body disapproving a license, and they looked at things like in the liquor license context, like where was it located, the operator. So I do think you have a little bit of control here. I don't think you're forced to go with the highest number, but if you have a 75 and a 3 and you pick the 3, that becomes a little bit harder to defend. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any interest in if there are any applicants, just see if they have anything to say, or?
Yeah, we can open it up.
I think we're just saying the same thing over and over.
Does anyone want to?
I mean, I'm more
Is
comfortable.
there any applicants who would like to come forward? Sorry, just to get it clear.
Yeah, just
Make
Sure.
a comment?
come up to the mic.
Good evening. My name is Masood Sheikh, and I'm one of the owners at 160 Air Road. We have a cannabis manufacturing facility. I'm proud to tell you that we have done an amazing job. According to CCC, we have been in productions since this beginning of this year, and we are told by CCC inspectors that it's one of the best built and best run facility in the state. And I just wanted to make sure that I let you guys know that we have shown intent to also open a retail store within that same complex, and we actually own the previously approved license for this facility at 160 Air Road Unit 4, which was previously approved for Littleton Apothecary. And unfortunately, I feel that that multiple years that license was approved, it was the previous owners were unable to put it in production, and there was a huge loss of revenue for the town. And we are here to commit to you that we have been very socially responsible operators currently, and we will do the same. And we will be in production as soon as we get a license, if approved, within months, if not within a few weeks. So just wanted to make that comment. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And if you have any specific technical questions, we have a consultant who's been helping us. He's got 12 years of experience running and building retail stores, and he's the one who's going to put the plans together for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick, you don't own the license for the previous operator. You own the property.
Yes,
that was
we own the property where the previous license was approved for that location.
Okay.
So from town's perspective, it should be an easier or simpler process or easier decision to say, oh, this location was previously approved for a license. And it would make it a little bit less of due diligence process on your part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying. I was like,
Okay. So, how do we wish to,
How you doing? My name's Eric Gaff. I own and operate Misty Mountain Shop in Malden, Massachusetts. We've been open since December 1st, 2022. Very successful. Looking to get our second license. I also worked at BLW Engineers in Littleton since 2004. Helped 50 plus operators get their licenses, cultivators, manufacturers. Actually helped out with MRM in Littleton. I think you're all well aware of BLW. So very interested in partnering with the town in this, and the one suggestion I would have with the license would just be put a time limit on the whole process. As far as getting permitted, a lot of people do hold on to that permit or the special permit. It takes, so obviously being well funded and having a good location is obviously important, but that's about it.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Who puts the time limit on it? Is it the HCA or the
So there's-
planning board or?
Yeah, so there's sort of two time limits. The first one is set by state law under zoning, so they have to take substantial steps to operate under that special permit, and that is the process that Littleton Apothecary fell under. I think the time limit, sorry, I forgot, Eric might have been mentioning is the board's time limit. So you would set a time limit. We're going to review all applications that we get in the next 3 weeks so that it's not open-ended, and then when that ends, you issue it. And then in the HCA, you can also set your own time limits where if they're not operational or at least filed an application with the planning board within set time, that the HCA would automatically dissolve. And that's controlled by this body.
So that's something we didn't have in place before?
We didn't have that in place.
Okay, that's the...
So the time limits for that are in the HCA, those aren't in the special permit?
So they would be in both places. The special permit, and I know Marin is here, a special permit will say like how long they have to take substantial compliance under the permit, and those are also in your zoning bylaws and state law. So that would appear there, and then in your HCA, you would have a corresponding time limit. I would encourage mirroring the state law, but then in addition, if you want other timelines, like you have to file your application with the planning board within 3 months, that's something you would control.
I mean, my recommendation would be our next meeting to get to an approval of a matrix or of this plan. Like in the next week, get you because I don't have a lot of issue with the actual document. It's the matrix that and you have a lot of the same concerns. I have some ideas for that, for sure, like dissolve number 1 and put something else in there, or just create it one big sheet and score it to whatever, 100. But you said we have to have 25% chunks, or?
You don't. 25, so a quarter of your overall score needs to be reserved for social equity.
The rest we can kind of...
The rest you can play with.
Okay.
And, I think there's, again, I know you're going to hate this, but there's no clear guidance. So if you're looking at ownership, for example, could we just have those 3 prongs, that those are things we're going to weigh, and then based off of your application, I feel like you should be at 15 points. Is that what you want, or do you want something more clear cut where like you get 5 points if you've been residing in Littleton for 3 years, you get 10 points if you have documented? So it's up to you how you want to kind of break that down. Really clear, or kind of leaving it up to you to decide how to allocate those 25 points.
I would prefer that it said exactly how many, and then we can argue whether we agree with those numbers or not. Right. The matrix says that if you've been in Littleton for 3 years, it's worth 10 points. And we can then argue whether we think it should be 10 or 15, but it says what it is, and that there's no ambiguity on, that's my personal opinion.
No, and then our only second decision point will be, let's just accept the HCA's between the state and the state.
Yep.
And then we will push forward whether we decide to do above 50 point or whatever, like you had mentioned.
Yep.
Or we say, we're going to go with the highest one. That's the only other piece.
Right.
And then we lock in the end date. All HCA, we're freezing, accepting HCA's on August 15th. And we are going to review them over the next week, and then by the end of August, we are actually reviewing and then voting on an HCA or the process by the end of August.
Well, that was the next question I had, is we don't actually have if we were to negotiate a new HCA, we'd have to put in all these dates in it, right? Do we have that form already that says you have to apply to the planning board within 3 months and your special permit within X months?
Yeah, so when you redid the HCA's for your existing applicants, we've created basically a template, and so we can use that. We can add, this is the date you need to apply to the planning board, because that wasn't in the prior one, but the new template did have requirements around operational, about them being operational, so I can get that to you.
I just didn't remember being in there, since we only approved ones who were already operational.
Right. 2 of them, At least one of them is not operational. I think two of them might be.
Okay.
On an administrative note, do either of you having any planned absences over the next 6 weeks? Because I know I do.
I do.
You do. And with Matthew recused, we just need to make sure we'll have a quorum. It's just something we need to stay on top of.
I mean, our next meeting is, the 29th is our next, I guess, schedule, but that would be an open.
That's optional.
It's an
already
optional
at this
meeting.
point.
Is it? Who's not here on the 29th? Just you.
I'm here on the 20th.
So, I mean, it wouldn't be, we're still taking your feedback.
Right, no,
But
yeah.
it's just on the
That's fine.
29th.
I just want to make sure that
We'd have three
we
to
have enough
vote.
people to move as quickly as we want to.
And if you could meet with Mark between now and then, any comments you want, because I do want to move this.
Do I get
And
your
this
votes
is-
then?
Do you want to provide the feedback to Mark, or do you want to provide the feedback to Avery?
It should come to me. It should come to me first, and then I can circulate it. At the same time, we'll make it public so that there's no issues under the open meeting law.
So our objective is to try to get something done as quickly as possible.
So get your feedback to her soon so that she can get the matrix back up.
And the only caveat on timing, and I can reach out to my contact at the commission, is how long it takes them to post and notify that there's an open available HCA to the social equity applicants, just so we make sure we're meeting that requirement. I'll check on that.
And that's a requirement, we can't just take that out of the policy?
It's not a requirement. We can definitely take it out. I do think it shows.
We're not going to do a 5-day open. I mean, it's probably like a 2-week period of time when we're, is that?
Yeah, if you don't do it through them, I would. Yeah, I mean, if you don't do it, I'll ask anyways, I'll ask hypothetically, but if you don't do it through them, then, just post it on your LinkedIn, on your social media, maybe in the newspaper, just making sure that everyone knows about it.
So we're basically, just to be, for dates here, we're going to plan on approving a matrix on the 29th, basically opening up HCA's from the
At that
1st to
meeting.
the 15th.
We're at that
Something
meeting. Yeah.
From the 30th to the 15th, open them up for effectively 2 weeks or.
A little over 2 weeks.
And then we'll review them.
For the next, well, on the 15th, when it closes, we'll have them, whatever, how many there are, 2, 3, whatever, and then we have
So we
two,
would be reviewing them on our next meeting after the 15th,
which is the end of August.
which would be, I don't think we have one at the end of August. The next meeting is the 8th.
Or whatever the next meeting is after the 15th, yeah.
But it's not just the matrix, right? It's a policy and the matrix. We talked about how those two are separate things. And the other thing we have to consider is the policy is really separate. Do we want to waive those fees for social equity applicants? Do we want to provide administrative support for social equity applicants? So I think that's also, that has to be voted on as part of this, right? So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page that we're not just reviewing the matrix, we're reviewing
The policy.
along with it.
Relative to waiving the fees, that are the fees, we can suggest to the planning board to waive the fees, right? Or can we?
You can just suggest,
Right.
you can't require.
Right.
And so I think the way that it's drafted is like encourage other bodies or
Right.
something like that. And I think once you, not to add a whole nother wrinkle, but once we do adopt the social equity policy, it should be memorialized in a bylaw. And so there's a model bylaw, so we can talk about that down the road closer to town meeting, but that would be the next step.
They have that completed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You do.
They do, actually. The commission has a model bylaw, but it's dependent. I don't like adopting the model bylaw until we've decided the social equity policy. It doesn't make sense.
And do you know how much?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What are the fees? What are the fees, Maureen, if you know off the top of your head, or?
Site plan
Excuse me.
approval.
Through the chair, excuse me.
I believe it's 3,500.
And I don't believe, I guess, question last time, did you guys have HCA review fee, or did you not charge a fee?
I wouldn't have thought of that if you didn't say it.
Yeah.
With you saying it, it does kind of trigger something.
Right. So, I mean, you could decide not to charge a fee at all, and it's equal, or you could
$1
charge.
million.
Yeah. You could charge a minimal fee to non-social equity applicants and.
Can't charge an impact fee, we charge an HCA fee.
A review
Equal
fee,
to-
and it needs to be, equal to the amount of time and effort that goes into the review.
All right.
Cover the stipends.
I think that was a workaround. And so our plan is to get feedback from the 29th, we're gonna meet, and so that will open up the application process, and then we get to review the applications.
And only caveat is you may not see me on the 29th, you may see Tom, but I will make sure he is up to speed, so.
When can you make it again?
No, I don't want to derail your process, so it may be Tom.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Adrian.
I'm going to stay for the next, are you doing an update on the planning board process?
Is this something that he can't be part of as well? Matthew?
What's that?
Yeah.
He is, I think he had said he wanted to recuse himself from both.
Right.
Items.
All right.
Okay. So we're doing Article 31. Mr. Sanders?
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Chairman, as you well know, that one of the problems with the marijuana growers here in Littleton is in certain areas of the town, there's been a massive amount of marijuana smell that has been getting into the residential area. And this has been brought to the select board attention many times with regards to the marijuana situation in the town here. I don't think anybody is, well, there may be some, but for the most part, I don't think that people have a real problem with the marijuana establishment. They just want to be able to live in their area and not be able to be subject to what they call a nuisance, a constant smell of this leaving the facility and it getting into the wind, and more especially if you're downwind of that facility. It's one thing you cannot control, and that's the wind. So there's means of controlling smell. I know from my experience working in labs and with the United States Army Chemical Corps, there's a mean of controlling that which you don't want to get outside. And they have to have the growth of the marijuana, I believe, on a positive air pressure system, but with a negative pressure you can control the smell of the marijuana by taking it up and feeding it through a filter system that can exit to the outside of the building through charcoal's #1 filter to get rid of smells, and it will take care of the smell of marijuana because it also, charcoal is good for taking care of the smell of toxic smells as well. So I think here in Littleton, we owe it to the residents in the area where these facilities are, and there's a constant downwind of this marijuana smell. And of course, as you well know, the state has no guidelines about the smell of marijuana in a community there. So that means, in my opinion, that the communities could take up and pass a bylaw to put something in place to control it. My personal feeling is that from a professional standpoint of having dealt with smell of toxicity and running it through filter system for 30 years, I think that there's no reason why a system cannot be put in where I know that one of the statements that was made with one of the system there on Taylor Street there, they talked about, they were concerned about going around the building sniffing and trying to check. Well, first of all, I don't think that if you got a negative pressure system where this stuff is being grown, being cooked, being processed, packed, or whatever the case is, you put it on a negative pressure system, then that means if there's holes in the wall, it will suck air from the outside and it would take it up and put it in the filter system. And if you don't have that, if you got cracks in the wall or holes in the wall and you're doing that, it's going to go outside. And once it get outside and it get into to the wind, then you don't know which way the direction going. It's going east, west, north, or south. It depends on what the prevailing winds are on that particular day. You can see it go north, which is upwind, but it all depends on the prevailing winds in that area there of the resident. And the resident has complained to the town about this, and they don't really get a concrete direction as to who is responsible for enforcing the smell. Well, if you don't have any procedure in place, there ain't nobody in authority to say this or that, because what are you going to use to cite them for citation with? You don't have anything, and the town doesn't have that, and I think that the town should have provisions that says that if you're going to operate this, I mean, we like to have procedures in place in this particular case to protect people. If people have asthma or whatever the case is, they're downwind and smelling and stuff, that's not good for them health-wise. And nobody is trying to create a problem. The cost to play the field is that you want to do this business, then, you know, it should be in an upstanding area in the community and you're compliant therewith as far as, you know, making the area, you know, the way it was before you moved in there. And they shouldn't have to have, you know, the smelling that's going on all the time that this operation is in place there. And I saw fit to come in and write up something here. It's based on primarily from a technical standpoint, having worked in R&D, research and development, for 5 years in Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland, in the chemical environment down there. I find that you have to, someone said that, well, you can't be strict with this. Well, if you're going to control something, it has to be done in a way that you control it, not half control it. You need to control it. In order to control it, it needs to be on that building where they're growing, cooking, processing. It needs to be on a negative pressure system. And that negative pressure system, it's like this building being air conditioned. Well, the thing is, it's on a positive pressure system. So when you open the door, air will go out the door. So you need something that in these facilities, when they open the door, it sucks air in and it doesn't let the smell of whatever's in there go outside the door. So I think that no one in the state, as far as I know, has any procedure in place about the marijuana smell in the community. Some may be concerned with it and some may not. I'm not sure. But I know here in Littleton, there are many residents are concerned about the smell. They can't sit on their porch. They can't sit out in the yard. They can't sit by the pool. They can't open the windows for the prevailing winds bringing that down, and they're smelling it. And I guess no one wants to smell it. I mean, I smelled enough of it when I was in the service because people was using it. But the thing here is that should Littleton do something about this? My answer to that is yes. I think Littleton can do something about it. As I said, you pay the price to play the field. Well, you come in here, they make good money from selling this process. So why not have a facility that you don't alienate your neighbor because you just put it, or you don't care, or you don't have means of control it, and you just let it go out. Someone said, one individual said about the carbon filter. Well, carbon filter will not filter that out. I can tell you that right now. It will not. It's charcoal that will filter it out. So my thing is that I think that the town of Littleton, especially this board being the head of this town, should work hand in hand with the plan department, the senators over there, and ask them to put the modifications in on what needs to be put in place, and taking all things in consideration, what EPA says in terms of smell and so forth and so on, and make sure that we go through all the loops and make sure that we put in a very basic, simple process. It doesn't cost a lot of money to put a negative pressure system in place. So therefore, I can't see why these industries would have a problem putting a negative pressure system in place to protect the neighboring community, that they're not confronted with the business that they have going on. And rightfully so, I think we all should have the opportunity to live in our area. We pay our taxes and so forth. Why can't we enjoy the area? We was doing that prior to that coming in there. And, it's like in the industry there where you have the chemical industry in there. There's certain things the EPA tell them you have to do. You cannot let this get into the environment. You need to control it. And they put that in place, and they're able to control that. I was doing environmental work before EPA came into existence. So I know that you can control it. And it's very easily done. And they can put the right filters in there. And this is something that I think the citizen in the town of Littleton is asking the select board, because that's where the complaints have ended up, being at the select board. And I think when chairman was the chair, one of the complaints that I recall him saying that, if this thing gets passed at the town meeting that George have on the smell, then that solves the problem, because that has been the big problem that the town of Littleton been confronted with, is the smell. People has come and said, the smell. So I think it's high time now that Littleton started working on this. If nobody else has got anything in place, at least we ought to try to put something in place to protect the citizen with the smell, because I'm sure our seniors and those that got asthma and other health issues, breathing and so forth and so on, that's in those areas, we should stand up for them and do what's right, because when you get old, no one tends to want to do a whole lot for you. But long God give me health and breath, I'm going to speak up about this, because I know how the environment is, and I know when people are having problems with asthma and so forth and so on, it's a very difficult task, and you don't want to be smelling something like that.
Thank you. Does the board have any comments? Before I...
No, my only comments, when I voiced my concern, or George had mentioned, we had two articles on there, one that I didn't believe made sense to rezone these businesses, and have this article as well, because why do we have to rezone businesses if we've got a fix to the problem? As I've sat back and thought more about it, it's, what if this doesn't work? What if you still have a neighbor I still smell it, or so there is kind of one of these situations where that could continually be a concern. We're just going to be chasing this, and that's probably why we're not seeing a lot of this across the state, or any of it, because I want to believe that this is a true test, because in the military it is tested, and people's lives depend on it, right? So I'm just, cognizant of the fact that it might not eliminate the problem, but it can't hurt.
Let me say this to you. When you have a system on a negative, are you familiar with the negative?
I am, yes I am.
Yeah. When you're on a negative pressure system, it sucks it in. And if you put it in the right filter, it will filter out, and when you go on the outside there, you can check it to see if there's any concentration on it. If the filter is filled up, you may get concentration coming through there, so you have to know how frequent to change the filter in order to have the effectiveness of the control of the smell. Because I can tell you, I work with GB, which is nerve agent, and VX, which is nerve agent. And let me tell you one thing. You know what happened to the train station there in Japan when they had their so forth? Let me tell you, I know those are toxicities that, it will kill you in 15 minutes. I know, I've been in an environment, so the type of equipment and the filters that are used, it will filter it out. So we're not talking about something that's going to be deadly, it's going to hurt you. We're talking about a smell of getting rid of something that is being cooked and it's getting into the environment. And I'm simply saying that there's nothing, I think, that you can say, you're going to get rid of this 100%, and you're talking about chasing. Yeah, you could chase it. But I think with the facilities that they have, if they put that in place, I don't think you will have the people complain about the quantity of the smell that is hitting them. That's my philosophy about that, because I think it's hitting them because there's nothing there to control it whatsoever. So it's just going out and getting in the environment.
I'd like to just kind of put this on perhaps a few of us going out and visiting some of the facilities, maybe not just in Littleton, and ask what the feasibility of doing something like this would be, and just talk about it. Trusting that it works, just in general, but what is the feasibility of actually putting a system like this into these facilities? And is it realistic that they can do it? Is it just, what's the cost to that? What is, is it something that existing facilities are not going to be bound by something like that? They could do it out of the goodness of their heart. But,
no, I think you need to put a regulation.
But a regulation, it can only change going forward.
As drafted, this says they have a year to.
But if it's a zoning.
Yeah, that's a dangerous. It's a dangerous model. Right, I know, but I just don't think that that's something that we can do. So I want to talk a little bit more about that and talk about the facilities. Talk to the facilities and just see what that looks like, to get more educated on that part of it, as opposed to something that we know that we think might be a pretty serious solution to this, and what the feasibility is to make that happen. So, Mary, it sounds like you might have some information.
Yep, as Mark was alluding to, as a zoning bylaw, it's only forward-looking, it does not control any existing facilities. I wanted to also add that the planning board has a public hearing open now to amend the marijuana bylaws, consolidate them, update them, and limit the number of grow facilities. We all understand that it's been the grow facilities across the state that have caused the odor issues. So that's one way to address it. And then just, I believe the board already knows that the planning board did approve amendments to the existing site at 234 Taylor Street that allows for expansion and additional, significant additional filtering.
Okay. So we might get a first look at this, potentially. I'd still like to visit the facility.
Let me know when you're done.
Oh, I'd like to visit the facility. I visited when it opened and walked through the entire thing, but I'd like to see what the plan is for them. And they have it, the drawings and everything. But.
And I agree. It's always good to learn from the facilities themselves.
So I will say that the operator, Sanctuary, has been very responsive to the neighbors, and it's a handful of neighbors in an industrial, that abuts an industrial neighborhood. or industrial zone, and that's where we zone cannabis. And on multiple occasions, when the loudest voice, I'll say, it's a friend of mine, so I want to be careful here. The operator has done multiple iterations of adding on to the system, has hired consultants to come in, if you go to Gillette Stadium, they measure decibels with a decibel reader. He purchased a sniff meter, essentially, I don't know what it's called, but whatever decibels are in smell, to be in compliance, because there is somebody that, if it's a nuisance, Board of Health is involved, and Board of Health has gone out multiple times, and Sanctuary has done a number of things to add to their existing systems, and to your point, that when they do any additions, they're going to further add to the filtration. The two largest, and I respect your experience, but the two largest filtration companies in this industry use carbon as their filtration. And that's what's recommended to people in the industry.
Right, so my understanding the best available technology is activated carbon, which is the charcoal.
Right.
But it's a difference,
same thing.
It's a difference between carbon filters, because they have just carbon filters, and you have carbon charcoal filters.
Activated carbon.
Correct.
So there's a different. My question to you, Mr. Chairman, to your guest there, Martin. Are you saying that the state has now got something in place about the smell of the marijuana in the communities?
No, the planning board has.
No, I'm talking about the state, not the planning board. I want to know, is the state got anything in place?
I'm not up to date on state CCC regulations.
Mr. Chairman, could you ask your rep here?
So I also would need to do a little bit more research, but my understanding is that they have to comply with DEP's air control regulations, which requires mitigation of odor. So there are some controls that are required in the CCC's regulations that pertain to odor. I just looked, I didn't see after a quick review that they named the best available control technology. So I think they leave that up to the entity to make sure that they're not contributing to air pollution. Air pollution includes odor. Right. So I don't think they talk about that. I think from a town perspective, we need to be aware that whatever regulation we do adopt cannot be deemed to be impracticable for the establishments. So if it costs too much money and it will make establishments, it will be too difficult for establishments to operate because of the cost, then the Attorney General is likely to disapprove our bylaw. So if we are going to name a specific technology that we want them to employ, we need to do the analysis of whether or not we think we have that authority, and if we do have that authority, whether it's feasible for establishments.
So I'll just say I think we need to have these kind of regulations. I don't think it belongs as a bylaw. I think it's something that we should fund Marins to basically go off and research through your consultants what should be in special permits going forward for odor control, whether it's for any of the types of facilities, the manufacturer versus the grow. We need to determine what the best solutions are going forward, and that should be part of their conditions. And then a way of making sure they're compliant with those. But to put it in as a bylaw, it kind of scares me, because if we said, right now we're saying activated charcoal is the best. Tomorrow they come out and they say that ozone's better, for example, and now we can't tell someone that they have to put an ozone filter in because our bylaw says activated charcoal, and we're going to wait, months before we can change it, and hope that we remember to change these things, and I don't think a bylaw is the best solution, but I agree we should be cognizant of what best practices are and build those into our permits.
Well, I think number one, that the town should make sure that on DEP, that the smell is not a problem. We should know that we should tell the people, DEP said the smell of marijuana is not a problem.
Well, we know the Board of Health has been out there saying.
Well, I'm not talking about the Board of Health. I'm talking.
I agree with you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I'm talking about who's the authority in this state? DEP. She just said DEP is the authority in this state. We should ask DEP, where we have marijuana facilities that is producing marijuana and is discharging a smell out of that facility that's getting into the environment. If you won't do it, I'll write it and ask them to do it, because I think that the people deserve some action from this board, and not just let it be for the sake of letting it be.
We're not the authority.
I think we could ask DEP, but I would be surprised if the Board of Health regulations don't include the DEP regulations. I would be surprised if they're not a superset.
Well, I don't know, but if DEP is the authority on it, I think you have to present the problem to them for them to act on it, to tell you one way or the other.
We can.
And I'm not basing it on what the health board has in place, because if they did, the health board would have been dealing with this some time ago with regards to what is what, because it's been kicked around. It's been kicked around from the health board to the select board to the health board to the building department. It's just been a round circle these people have been going through.
So, just because there's a problem doesn't mean the select board can fix it.
I don't know that.
And so, I agree there's a problem. I drive in that neighborhood frequently, and there's a problem. I think, I agree with Mark's idea that this needs to reside as a permitting issue. This needs to be a requirement for the facilities built, not a bylaw. Just in glancing at some of the issues with making this a bylaw are, like, as you brought up, who's going to enforce it and how? The idea that if somebody complains about the smell, that makes it a nuisance, it puts a lot of power in a single resident to start, harassing, and if they wanted to, right? A business establishment. It creates, what I would like to avoid is spending all our cycles and money and energies, right? Because they're limited assets, on defending a decision that we've made without all the facts that we can gather. And so I think, trying to see what other communities have done makes sense, but I don't see a bylaw as the way to get this done. I just don't.
Well, maybe, Mr. Chairman, maybe a bylaw isn't the way. I'm not saying that you do the bylaw, but what I am saying is that if you do nothing, what are you telling the people? You tell them basically you don't care. So maybe the bylaw isn't the answer to it. But first and foremost, you need to get to the authority that can tell you one way or the other. And that's in the state with the DEP or EPA with regards to what is going on in a community. And see whether they say, well, it should be this part per. The sample is that it's higher than what we say it should be. So there's something that needs to be done with regards to that. And I think that's all that the people are asking, that something be done, and they said, well, we'll work with this and that. When the question came up about 234 Taylor Street, let's be candid here. There was not a peer review consultant out there could say one way or the other when they passed that in the planning department. Because there was nobody out there, because nobody had the text on. So when we say that, oh, this is that, no, we need to go to DEP with regards to what is the amount of propane needs to meet the standard to be in the environment. And the only way we're going to get that is either have DEP come out and run tests out there as to what's going on, because somebody needs to do something.
So I agree with you to a certain extent, but my fear is that if DEP came out there and said, and they're going to say that that odor that is very persistent is not a nuisance, or is not,
It's organic.
it's not high enough for them to do anything. So we're not any better off necessarily.
Well, yes, you are, because you've answered the people question and concern that what they're saying is allowed.
What we're telling them that what they're experiencing is a nuisance is a legal nuisance, and there's nothing we can do about it, and they're no closer to any resolution on that.
Well, they might not be no closer to the resolution, but
so I think we need something else other than that, and I agree with you, and I think, maybe it should be something. I know when you were going through the whole permitting process, you try to get peer review and couldn't find someone, but I'm wondering if we do it offline and just say, what do industry recommends, and so that the next time where we can do things going forward, that would be my solution, but where it's not time critical anymore, right? Where there's nothing we're going to do necessarily for sanctuary, but we could do it for all of the different types of facilities going forward, what best practices are. So we know going forward, not to throw you under the bus on any of this, but.
Through the chair, Ryan, the new technology for the smell mitigation is tied to the expansion of the facility. So what is the timeline for that expansion? And therefore, when would people who have used the smell, when would they expect to notice that, oh, the new technology must be in place because now I can't smell things like I used to?
Right, when the expansion is operational.
And when do we expect? Have they pull permits for it or anything?
I have not seen a building permit application.
Tim, if I may, with an expansion, the indoors will be larger, and a negative pressure system, there'll be more airspace to process the air, filter the air. So that may be mutually beneficial.
The hope is the expansion solves a lot of the other issues.
Yeah, and to the planning board, it was beyond a hope. It was, the engineering design was provided, and the peer review, not that we couldn't find one that had time available to work with.
Mr. Chairman, I got one more comment to make, and then I'm going to sit down. First and foremost, I think that, the state put something in place, and they didn't have the data either. They were so quick to put this stuff in place. It seemed that communities and stuff was looking at the money that they could get from selling the marijuana. They basically weren't concerned about the smell of it or what it'll produce in the community. And then they wrote it up and said, you can't do this, you can't do that. They have the right to do this, do that. They really didn't take into account what the citizens in the state have a right to, in order for them to come in and, I consider, forcing it into some communities, because they made it seem like you got to let them do it. And a lot of communities looked at the money that they could bring in with regards to that. So they're making the money, in these operations. So to me, best practice is not to let it get outside the building and get into the community in the first place, because we all have concern about the citizen, number one, that has asthma, particularly. And we don't know who, because we don't know the medical extent of people that live in the area there with regards to that. But, you know, I'm the Lone Ranger, so I'm gonna keep fighting. So I know about, you know, the environmental aspects because I've been in it 30 years. And I'm going to proceed to write to the feds and to the state with regards to this, and see if I can get an answer with regards to this, mitigating what should be in the air and what to do, the amount that should be there. And then at least I will know, and I'll get on television and tell the people this is what I did and this is what I find out. Because the people deserve to know. And we was doing okay before we put them in that area. But, you know, people voted it in, so, hey, we got it, and we're probably gonna live with it, and it's never gonna go away. Thank you.
Thank you. Park and Rec MOA.
We've got 2 employees sitting here all night for just a P-card thing. Can we still sign them up?
Are you here for the P-card? No. Why don't we come?
Robin and Michelle.
Okay, yeah. We'll take you, we'll do them real quick.
Will we do the P-cards?
Yeah, we'll do the P-card, sorry.
We can do that.
So Robin Haley, Treasurer, Collector, Assistant Finance Director. We took a look at the P-card policy because it hadn't been reviewed in some time, so we thought it was time for an overlook. And we've added some new policies. More supporting documents for receipts. For example, Park and Rec takes a field trip and we just get a summary receipt. We'd like them to print out the details of who went on the field trip with backup so we can see how many actually went, how many supervisors there were, and kind of tie that out and make sure there's not loose ends with those things. Restaurant receipts, making sure we're not just getting a summary receipt, that we're actually getting details behind them, because then you don't know what they've purchased. We also added 8 items that the P-cards cannot be utilized for, things such as legal services, alcohol, tobacco. There's a whole list of them in the policy. For the lateness of it, I'm not going to read them all. The policy also states that all purchases must comply with 30B, which was not in their prior, and it is now. We added a new section clarifying that the P-card should only be used when all other payment options have been exhausted. So you should be using the P-card to go across the street to Neshoba Garage. They'll give you an invoice, we can run it through the regular AP process. We clarified that spending on meals should only take place when traveling, consistent with the travel policy that's in the select board, and that all other food-based purchases need to be approved in advance by the finance director. And also any increases to P-card spending limits should be in writing to Ryan. That's basically the summary of it. I know Ryan sent it around to everybody, right? Does anybody have any questions?
So number 8, gifts for colleagues.
Say it again?
Gifts for colleagues is
Yep.
Something that the purchase card should not be used for.
Shouldn't be used, period.
Right.
But yeah.
Which makes sense, but given, recent circumstances, for example, if a department wants to order flowers.
It's illegal.
Okay, so how do they go about it?
We all chipped in as staff members. We chipped in for the gifts with our own money.
Yeah, so I mean, part of this is just to tighten up these processes. It's 30B rules are pretty strict. So having, making it more explicit to those who have the P card, it's we really are trying to keep it limited to only necessary uses. And so So that's really what the goal
I
was.
guess my question got cut off then. My question was, how could bereavement flowers be purchased if not within
So I think what...
at all?
Yeah.
So we're having our employees pay for their own bereavement flowers?
No. What I think Robin was saying, that in an instance such as that, you would want to have, you kind of pass the hat, with it where staff pitches in and then flowers.
Yeah, you can't use town funds for flowers.
Yeah, it's actually,
Yeah, in Massachusetts state law, DORs expressed, they send out bulletins. They're called In Our Opinion. It is
Federal law too.
sympathy gifts, those things, funeral flowers, they are expressly prohibited
Celebratory.
purchases. They even have rules about retirement parties, all sorts of rules like that.
That's part of why we have to have some of these policies, is to tighten some of those components up, because I don't disagree with you that it does seem on its face rather draconian, but at the same time, trying to deal with Massachusetts purchasing law is just that. It is challenging, because they really do limit you.
I did ask Ryan on the side, just where's the teeth in the policy on something like this, if it's done through the disciplinary process, during performance cycle review, et cetera.
How much of this policy is new or edited?
I can send out a red line version. I have all the highlighted changes that we made. If you want me to do that, we can certainly do that.
I think what Robin did was to highlight the components that were new in her overview. So the card shall not be used, which was, Robin, maybe we can go through it quickly.
Yeah, so if you look, if you go on page 1, number 2, the first sentence is an ad.
So I actually had a comment on number 2, and I thought it should actually be broken into two bullets.
We can do that. Yeah, so it'll be 5 items instead of...
Yes.
Yeah, we could do that. That's fine. Under acceptable uses and procedures, that first paragraph is new. The use of credit cards. On page 2, the third paragraph, it is the responsibility of the employee to immediately notify the finance director. That's new. In the next paragraph, the last sentence is new. Any request for purchase increases must be in writing to the finance director. Underneath that whole next section for the perimeters and the 1, 2, 3, those are all new. Under the when using the purchase card, number 2 is new because that's the 30B policy. Item 5, we added, please notate on the paperwork being submitted if you've submitted for a tax refund, because the accounting department's always chasing if they get taxes. Did you ask for the refund? And they may have asked for it, but it doesn't happen quite as quickly as the original charge comes through.
It's also reminding them too, when they do make the purchases, that they make it clear that they're purchasing on behalf of the municipality, and thus shouldn't be charged sales tax to begin with, right?
Correct. On the next page, that whole section, the 1 through 8 that Karen was talking about, where it had the gifts for colleagues and flowers, that's all new. We added that whole section.
Robin, you also want to express that on the P card, it's got our tax exempt number.
Sure
so when
does,
they do notify the individual, the merchant, here's our tax ID number to put with the order.
Yeah, it's on the back of it. Under documentation and reconciliation, the first paragraph, the number 1 is new. Number 2 had the anytime purchase is made using, that's all the same, but then when it starts at the receipt should be itemized in the event of purchase contains admissions. That's all new. That whole rest of that section about detailed receipts was added. Item 4, the very end of it, all deadlines set by the treasurer's office regarding the processing of the purchase card statement. So we download twice a month and we say, here it is, have it due by this date to accounting. In a perfect world, it's all up there. Sometimes it's not. So sometimes there's frequent flyers. Item 6, spending on meals, that's new. We added that.
I have a question on number 6. What does preferably reimbursed mean?
We'd rather you, if you're gonna do the meals, that you submit an expense report rather than using a charge card.
In other words, pay for it yourself.
And then ask for reimbursement.
Yeah.
It just probably, I just wasn't sure what that meant, so you might want to clarify what the language of preferably reimbursed means, be more
Okay.
explicit. I also had a question on spending on meals when you're traveling.
Mhm.
We said we're not paying for alcohol. Are you not
Correct,
allowed to
we do
have? So if you're out
That's
on
why we want
travel-
an itemized receipt to make sure that.
So
they
if you're
know.
on travel, that should just be clarified too, that you can't have if you're out on a travel trip and you can't have a beer with your burger and have that reimbursed, right? Or you can't.
You
Whatever the
cannot.
So whatever the policy is should just be clearer on. I'm just saying that should be clear too, that that's part of what spending on alcohol means. It's not just, yeah.
Is that in the travel policy as well? I mean, does it specify that? in the
I'd
travel-
have to
Because
look
that's what
in-
we're referring to.
I'd have to go look in the bylaws, but, I mean, we
Does that
have listed here no alcohol.
Does that include like bourbon steak tips and things like that?
Alcohol's gone then.
Yeah.
Once it hits that heat. Other than that, the only add we did was the last page, instead of saying termination of employment, we did separation of service. So those are the big changes. If you want to send me what you'd rather me put in here for travel, I can certainly add it.
I would just say that you might want to say alcohol's prohibited there too.
Okay, I can add that to that.
My only other comment on the document is on page 2. There, kind of in the middle, it says, further parameters for use of the card may be established by the finance director, following consultation with the treasurer collector. I don't think you need the following consultation part. The finance director is free to consult
Yep,
with
we can take
you
that out.
whenever he would like, so you don't have to tell him he has to.
Okay.
My other question for this is more for Ryan and Jim, because the document looks like it was approved by the Light and Water Commissioners as well.
I saw that, yeah.
So is that true, or are we telling them their policy?
I don't think that we're dictating that. We're making the refinement for ourselves, so I can't speak to what the Light and Water Department's done or what they voted. So.
We should just clarify what it is, or if this has to go back to them too.
Yeah, they do
And
have a
then-
card, so.
I guess for water,
They
we
do
can.
have a card.
Well, for water we can,
So it's kinda-
definitely, but, and
Travel
it needs to
trailer.
change to be approved from the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Just the footer.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
No. We like updated policies.
More coming.
Can I ask also where this ends up as a policy? It's in like the,
So when they get our intent, I think, is to have a meeting, go over the new policies and have them signed.
but this
We
is
have-
like an employee handbook policy? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, to the handbook, yeah. Or if it's not,
Shared drive.
it's.
When issued the card, you can.
Yeah, when issued.
Yeah, they sign.
Right, and that's part, if you notice in the last section,
I'd like to see it get signed off every year by each person who holds the card.
yeah.
You like what?
Upon receipt of the card, yes, I
Each person
yeah.
that has a card.
I want them all to resign.
Sign that every year as a reminder.
I'm fine with that.
Federally, it's every 3 years.
Are the cards issued annually?
No.
No.
How long are they good for?
I'm not sure. I have to go look. I don't know. But when they get a new card, they sign a new.
My other general comment on the document, and is to take out the specific system that you're using. It talks about the Works program throughout. I would just say, you don't need to tell them what's Works, right? If we did a different card or a different system, you don't want to update the policy for everyone, right?
Fair. Yeah, we could change that.
So do we want to vote or wait for the final version to come back?
I think there are minor things coming back, so.
between Robin
Okay.
and Michelle and Brian.
So I move that the select board vote to approve the town purchase card policy as amended.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Gary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying up.
Staying late.
Be at work by 7.
7:10.
7:10, sorry.
Okay. Park and Rec MOU.
All right. No, I want to thank the chairman for the Parks and Recreation Commission and previous Chairman Wilson and Chairman Rumbacher for taking the lead in the cooperation with putting something together that is standard amongst other.
Matthew doesn't have one.
Oh.
Am I back on? Sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you.
He just wants his TV time.
The MOU that
Sorry.
that's okay. The MOU that just gives guidance on a number of different areas, but really it just helps with checks and balances with the commission and the select board on to be consistent with other department heads, and especially with Parks and Rec that have such a major influence in the community, especially with the youth, that it's a good thing to have in place. And I want to thank the chairman of Parks and Recreation for the cooperation and the support as throughout the process. And I think it's a good document that's being presented.
So this basically gives the town administrator more day-to-day control of Park and Rec Commissioner while leaving the commission in charge of setting goals and direction and things like that.
That's good, Doc.
No, good work.
Yeah, no, it's very good, yeah. By everybody involved.
Several meetings.
Yes.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Is there any comment from the commissioners on this?
Saul Marini, Park and Rec Commissioner, Chair. No, I think we have gone through this process a couple times. I'm happy that we have come to a good conclusion. I think we'll all be happy with and look forward to having the town administrator help us in building the programs and continuing the success of the department.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Saul. Thanks for staying up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Everyone's ready? Move that the select board vote to approve the Parks, Recreation, and Community Education Memorandum of Agreement with the select board.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think they want your signature, Saul.
Yeah, I guess I should also note the Park and Rec Commission did approve this at our last meeting. So.
Poke your finger, put a little blood on it.
Thank you. Elder and Human Services Program Coordinator.
So this item was up before, you have a memo in your packet. This item was up before the Personal Advisory Committee. So basically, this is, we're not adding to our FTEs in the Elder and Human Services program, but instead sort of reorienting things to basically create someone who's more focused on doing program specific, whereas the individual who backfilled our assistant, she has more of a counseling background, so she's doing a little bit of counseling and a little bit of the administration. And the prior person who did this before had pretty much programming experience. So now this is just a reshuffling of that. So the number of FTEs is the same, and the proposal before you is the new job description, as well as establishing the position at a grade 11. The job position, I don't know, Gary, if we're going to be doing any more changes to this, or should we hold off on voting this tonight?
No, I think
based on.
I think this one was good to go. We when it was reviewed by the Personal Advisory Committee, they obviously the structure. Just let everyone know that's one of the first questions I always ask is where's this rank in the structure. And so the outreach coordinators are, I believe, grade 12s. Mm-hmm. So this aligns with that. It also aligns over to Park and Recreation program coordinators as well, same grade. So it fits in nicely with that, and it's a little bit above the administrative job beneath it. So
little bit of threading the needle to make sure that
And
everything
the
was.
Personnel Advisory Committee both approved the job description and the grade, is that correct?
Yeah, it went back, this wasn't an easy one. This went back a few times, and a lot of work with Liz
Okay.
had to get her on Zoom a few times, probably more than she wanted, but, and thanks to Bill Schmidt, too, for working. He did a lot of the legwork on this, the back and forth to get it to where we need it to be.
Okay. You ready? Move that the Select Board vote to approve the proposed job description for the Elder and Human Services Program Coordinator, and move that the Select Board establish the position of Elder and Human Services Program Coordinator as grade 11 on Compensation Plan Schedule A.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes.
I did have Rob's not here. Rob's address was, said Jennifer instead of Juniper.
Yeah. Yeah, it says Jennifer Street, but it should be Juniper.
Yeah. That was under.
Juniper, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you see it under Anita Harding and Rob Brown's job
Yep.
street.
Okay.
Should be Juniper. I mean, it's not germane, but
Great.
it's not. I guess it is germane. Which is not.
Any other changes, comments, updates? Move that the Select Board vote to approve the meeting minutes from the Select Board meeting on June 24th, 2024 as amended.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Gary. All those in favor?
Aye. And I move that the Select Board adjourn tonight's meeting exactly on time.
In LA.
Well, Mountain Time, Central Time, we're on time.
Mountain State.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good
See
night,
everyone on the
Littleton.
29th.